Welcome back. It's Beyond the Box Score. I'm Dan Schneier. That's Jacob Gibbs. It's ramp it up time, baby. We are in the middle of the offseason where I am so excited to talk football with you. Today is 10 trade targets. Last year, we did the show in July. We're bringing the show much earlier this year. For all the Dynasty sickos out there, you want you guys to get ahead of the trade market. This is the fun time to play Dynasty or even fantasy players in keeper leagues. I know a lot of you asked me questions already about that. So if you're here just to hang out, you know we're bringing it out. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate you helping us get this page off the ground. It is a new page for Beyond the Box Score. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We need to get those subscribers up. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. I'll ask for that again. Leave a comment if you can. Hype the show. Today we're going to be talking about Romeo Doubs leaving for New England. What does that mean? And how about the players he leaves behind in Green Bay? The upside of guys that you're not even thinking about. DeVonta Smith, why are we forgetting about him? He's a freak on film. And what if A.J. Brown is still traded? There's a lot to talk about today. And then next week, we've been hyping this one, Jacob, for a long time. And I've been doing a lot of digging on the tape. And I know you have now as well. It's draft content. We're starting it up, baby. All the top prospects will be discussed. You want to get ahead for your rookie drafts. Well, now is the time to do it. It is what? Mid-March. We're almost into April, and that's going to be big-time draft situation talk. So we're excited for that. But today, we're rolling. We're going to be talking about 10 guys to trade for. And by the way, if you haven't already, check out some of the super specific player deep dives we've done already on the page. Ken Walker, Mike Evans. Those videos are live on the channel in case you missed it. Obviously, the rookie videos will be hitting the channel as well soon. So again, subscribe if you haven't. That really helps us grow. Like the videos, comment. We're up to, I think, 600 plus subscribers, and we're growing already, Jacob. So really excited to keep this thing rolling.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for the intro, Dan. Yeah, 631 is the subscriber count here. Thank you to all of you. It's been very, very fun and like humbling to see it happen like one by one by one. Like it truly like individual people showing up because it is the off season and there are dozens of us is kind of where we're at, where there's very, very few people online. But we do appreciate all of y'all. I see you on Twitter. I'm trying to interact with everybody who's reached out, left comments and all that. Really appreciate getting this rolling. And like Dan said, we've got some cool stuff already on the channel. I'm just getting started here with like 4 or 5 videos, and we got a lot of other cool stuff coming. Also, yeah, Dan, you mentioned the video we did last year, the best buys. We're doing it much earlier this year. And so I think it will still be instructive. But like last year, we really hit on some important ones like Caleb Williams was QB5, Colson Loveland we hit on. But also I listened back. I'm like, I swear we did Drake May, but we didn't feature him because it was like too obvious.
It was
like
too obvious. We got to just do the obvious ones.
It's like all our subscribers already know about Drake May and how in love we are with him. So we didn't like put him on the list.
Now we don't get the credits. We got to just put the obvious ones in.
And then I was looking at today's list of 10 players and I'm like, dang it, I kind of did the same thing.
Yeah. We just did deep dives again.
Well, I want to talk about people that we haven't talked about that much because I think that's for the people who are coming back here at this point in the off season, it's really good to just like be able to get as many players covered as possible, right? Like that's why you're here is to learn more about different types of players that maybe don't get talked about so much. So I'll just start by reiterating that I think Colson Loveland is the best buy in Dynasty fantasy football, even though his price is way up. Yeah. My brother and I, we manage a bunch of Dynasty teams together, and we just sat down the other day and I tiered it out as to like players that I think are great buys. And Loveland, I have in the top tier where it's like, these are truly elite players. These are blue chip players that are gettable. And I do not think that they should be. If I have Loveland on my team, I'm basically just not trading him. I would be shocked if your valuation is as high as mine. And so I think that's worth mentioning. Like if you have Trey McBride, I'm totally comfortable doing a trade where you get Loveland and a little bit back. If you can turn a Ronde Gadsden into Loveland somehow or something like that, absolutely, I would be very, very aggressive in doing that.
Team is falling apart fast, unfortunately, Jacob. As much as I love the player, I'm starting to lose some faith fast.
So players we're not going to talk about today. In that elite tier, it's Loveland, it's Love, Jeremiah Love. I think we're not far away. I mean, if you watch this guy's film, we're very excited to get into the rookie evaluations next week and going forward. He moves like very few people in the world move. He moves like some kind of insane combination of Bijan Robinson and like Gibbs, or Bijan Robinson and Etienne or something, but he's bigger than Etienne. Like he's truly a ridiculous athlete. And I don't think we're that far. Maybe a few weeks, maybe 1 year from him moving up into that range. Just a year and a half ago, Bijan and Gibbs were in like round 2 of Dynasty startups. Now they're top 5 players, even in Superflex or tight
Let me
end.
get a quick take from you then, just from the film you've watched so far. This doesn't have to be a take that defines you, Jacob. You can amend this. And for those who are about to hear it, know that it's still developing. So it's not his final take. Whose film did you like better, Ashton Genty or Jeremiah Love?
Yeah, that's a big question. I truly think they're basically the same. They're
I think Love is
different.
better on tape.
They're different. Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. I think Ashton Genty is like astronomically better at avoiding tackles and contact balance and staying on his feet and moving through
Sure.
contact, navigating contact. They play at such ridiculously different speeds
Yep.
that it's really, really hard to compare them. But yeah, I think they're just both basically as good as you're going to get from a rookie running back prospect. Like if I don't know, they're like 99 out of 100.
Sure.
So,
I'm good with that. I think for today's NFL, what excites me so much for our game for fantasy about Love is just like if he gets with the right OC, he could be such a weapon in the pass game in that rare like CMC Bijan type. Okay, we're getting real targets that define seasons for fantasy.
So Dan mentioned we've got 2 of these videos out on some of the free agency moves here. We're going to have these individual player profiles on the draft prospects as well. So be looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I totally agree. Love, even though Genty has a receiving profile and background, I think Love, there were some reps where they're lining him up a receiver or in the slot, and he's so fluid as a mover where he's just moving right through, just cutting right through the defense. And yeah, we've seen, Bijan Robinson use that way. We're seeing that more and more. Christian McCaffrey used that way. I think that he could be the next.
And maybe Kubiak will do that with Genty. I hope to see it.
Maybe. Okay, so if you can trade for 101, I think it's worth being very aggressive in doing so. I would even this might sound crazy. I've got teams where I've got like Bijan, and I would consider doing a trade if I got 101 and a decent piece back, like quite a bit back. I think that is even on the table. I really think it's worth it. So I wanted to mention them. Etienne, continue to think is just not someone that you should be able to trade for, but you actually can trade for him. And then Drake London is the other one. These are true like S tier players that you can trade for, and they should be off the table in my opinion. And we're not going to talk about them today. And then it's a bunch of these super random young guys that we're not going to talk about today. But if you want more info on them, we did talk about them in this video right here, ranking the 50 best rookie seasons. It's 3 hours long, but there's lots of really good content in there. So guys we're not going to talk about today are Kyle Mononga. I continue to think he's a phenomenal buy. I think the Ben Johnson is bar none, like basically the best run designer in the league. And they've got a good offensive line there. And the offensive ecosystem just feels so strong moving forward. And Mononga is always going to be part of it. Yeah. And so I want to buy in on that at his price. And we're seeing some running backs by Shell Tootin, all these guys that are kind of moving up the board, and it's moving him down, and so his price just like slowly is kind of getting cheaper when I don't think there's any reason that it should. So
I think there's some thought, Jacob, in the Dynasty community that like if somebody was formerly a day 3 draft pick, or in Mononga's case, a 7th round pick, you knock them for that. But almost like think about it from the other side of point of view. If you look at it the other way from the team building roster perspective for the Bears, for example, like you have this guy under contract for $1 million against the cap for 4 years. There's no, like you said, there's no reason for ever phase him out of your offense because he's so cheap. And, versus other positions like maybe receiver or tight end where you could get somebody in there or draft over that player. The Bears don't have much incentive to draft over Mononga right now.
His situation does feel different. He was drafted immediately by this new regime, and the regime was so overwhelmingly successful that you have to just feel so good about Ben Johnson going forward that this is the beginning of something. They're building something, and that he's attached to Ben Johnson for at least the beginning of this, the first few years. So it does feel different than most day 3 backs. Jayden Higgins. And to me, once a day 3 back has like kind of established themselves as a real player for multiple years, then it doesn't matter so much.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying there? Like kind of what we're seeing with Rico Dowdle and Jaylen Warren and players like that. Like once they've done it and they're in the league, I don't think it matters so much once they're to like year 4 or 5. Jayden Higgins, I think is a great buy. We're not going to talk about him today. Jalen McMillan, we've talked about him in the free agency winners and losers episode. I think he's a great buy that we're not going to talk about today. Gunnar Helm, tight end for the Titans. Dan and I are both cautiously optimistic. Think there's a lot of upside for Cam Ward going forward, and Helm could be a big part of that. Talked about him on that 50 rookies episode. Jalen Knoll, continue to think is a really good buy for the Houston Texans. And then here are some really random ones, but I think are just players you need to be overweight on. I want these guys basically anywhere I can get them on.
I'm going to rapid fire 1 through 10 on how confident I am in your picks here.
Love this. This is so sick, this content right here. deep dynasty leagues, deep benches. I want these guys on basically all the teams. It's Dylan Sampson, Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, that's a 9-2 for me.
LeQuint Allen, Jacksonville Jaguars.
2-4 for me, not high.
Wow. Jarquez Hunter, I'm still in.
Yeah.
LA Rams.
9-7. Don't you? I will never quit Jarquez Hunter.
He's so good. Sean McVay
is how buried he is.
Sean McVay's super slow with these rookies. Blake Corum felt buried after year 1. We'll see going forward. Jarquez would legitimately be like RB3 or 4 in this class for me. He's really good.
Remember we said that last year when we were evaluating, we were like, this guy would normally be like a top 5 running back in any other class, but the class was so loaded, and I feel that way. This running back class, by the way, that we're about to evaluate, not really that high on. It's pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
Comparatively to what we've been getting.
Eric All. People have completely forgotten about Eric All, tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals. Was having a really encouraging rookie year and then tore his ACL. But everything I've heard so far is that he's on track this next year. And I think he could be a big part.
I won't ever count out a Joe Burrow tight end. He made Tanner Hudson
free.
Yeah.
He's free. Yes. Joe Burrow tight end, big athletic guy, young, talented guy. Had some pretty encouraging receiving metrics in college and looked good on film as a rookie. Eric All.
Okay.
In the last
I have to give that one. I'll give that a 6-2.
I want him on all my tight end premium teams, and you can find him available on the waiver wire in some leagues. Another guy you can find on the waiver wire is Mitchell Evans.
All leagues, Jacob, all leagues.
You're not getting sick enough then. Mitchell Evans, tight end, Carolina Panthers, available in most of your leagues, if I had to guess. And I don't think he should be. We'll see what they do in the draft.
Okay.
Maybe they go after Sadiq. Maybe there's the Sadiq team. But if they roll with pretty much the same tight end room, I think he's going to be a huge part of it because he's a phenomenal blocker. And he has receiving upside. He was a really good receiver at Notre Dame before he got hurt. I thought he looked a lot healthier last year as a rookie than he did in his final season in college. And so I'm pretty excited about him. I think if teams were able to like guarantee a full bill of health coming out of college, he probably would have been around 2 or 3 pick because he is really versatile in what he can help your offense do as a blocker and a receiver.
Okay.
Those are the Sicko picks. You ready to get into our top 10?
Let's get into the top 10 right now.
All right. Number 1. We're just starting right off with the Sicko picks. Just keep it rolling here. Trey Harris. He's somebody we've talked about a lot, but I had to put in this video because he's truly the top dynasty buy to me right now. Trey Harris, wide receiver for the LA Chargers, has absolutely ridiculously dominant college film and production as an outside ex-receiver at Ole Miss, paired up with Jackson Dart. He was just winning repeatedly down the field on jump balls, and it amounted to just monstrous efficiency numbers. If you look at like during the time I have the data available, which is back to 2017, if you look at efficiency in terms of yards per route run versus press coverage, which I think is really important for these guys who are then trying to translate this type of skill set to the pros, who had the best numbers in the SEC, it's Trey Harris above all of the best receivers from that time over the past few years. Like even George Pickens, who was obviously dominant against press and has come in and been really dominant against press here in the league too. Trey Harris is up there and above all of those names. And so I'm just super excited about him. And we really liked what we saw from him on film in year 1. And he's super cheap because it wasn't a big statistical output, but it wasn't a big statistical output for Ladd McConkey last year either. Like it was not a big statistical output for the Chargers in general because their offense was so broken. Now they've got both tackles coming back. We're really excited about the play calling change here, a more forward-thinking play caller than what they've had, and what that could mean for these pass catchers and all of the explosive playmakers that they've got here attached to Justin Herbert. And so who's the cheapest of that group? It's Trey Harris. People are excited about Oronde Gadsden. People are still in on McConkey. They're obviously very excited about Amari and Hampton. Nobody cares about Trey Harris. And this is a guy who played a lot as a rookie. And Quentin Johnson is apparently rumored to like be, available in trades. And so I think he's a big part of what they're going to do going forward. They really like him as a run blocker, and that's going to get him on the field. And I think this is the cheapest you're ever going to get him. We don't know for sure that it will amount to a productive career, but there are a lot of encouraging signs that say this might just be an example of somebody who it takes a year or two for them to become a productive pro, but we know that it's in there.
Yeah, 10-0. I mean, we've talked about this a lot on this show already this offseason. I don't think we've been as aligned on a player since Colston Loveland last year. There will be guys that we both get excited about individually through the years. Shout out your boy, Bill. I mean, look, Bill, player that we are going to have to talk about at some point. I'm curious where you come in now on. But as far as Trey Harris goes, we're both in lockstep with regards to what we see moving forward. For me, it comes down to just the film I watched at Ole Miss with Jackson Dart. What was he specializing in? To me, it was winning on in-breaking routes and the intermediate range. In the NFL, that's one of the areas of the field that translates, I believe, from film, from college to the NFL. It's can you lock that timing down? And then it requires two things. It requires your ability to get in and out of your breaks. And I think Harris can do that at a really high level. And it requires your quarterback's ability to process it and have the velocity and ball placement to take advantage of it. And that's exactly what Justin Herbert does. Again, go back to those Mike McDaniel offenses before Tua fell apart. It was all that exact thing. It was just in-breaking routes over the middle with a ton of space based on the run game action and all the pre-snap motion. That's going to be Trey Harris if he gets that opportunity. It all kind of depends on that coming into place. I think a Quinton Johnson trade would be just like bang, like, skyrocket to the moon for Trey Harris. But I'll be buying now before that happens.
Exactly. Yeah. Austin Lim is in the comments asking, like, do you think there's too many mouths to feed in LA? And that might be the case. We've seen Mike McDaniel's offenses generally are pretty concentrated. Yeah, but that's the thing is like that's why he's cheap,
Right.
And I think being able to get him for nothing, like you can get him for. I mean, I'm totally comfortable paying a second from this year. He was a second round pick last year in a much better class. But I don't even think you have to do that. I've been throwing out thirds and fourths for him. I think there's ways to get creative where you can get him in a deal and it doesn't cost you very much at all. You might even be able to just throw him in as like an add-on piece.
So did I tell you about the trade I made at the end of last year with a friend of mine who was competing for the championship in my league and I'm rebuilding? I traded away, and I want to hear your take on this, and this involves Trey Harris. I traded away Swift, and I only would do the deal if he included Trey Harris, and he did. It was DeAndre Swift and DJ Moore, and this guy's making a run. I gave up those players, and I got back Golden, Trey Harris, and Jonathan Brooks. I feel like that's the type of, you can trade those types of players, those Swift, DJ Moore types, to try to get a player like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense for sure. On both sides. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not quite as in on Golden as Dan. We're going to get to Dan's buys at the end, and Golden is one of them. But I think there's reasons to be excited about all the Green Bay pieces right now with Romeo Doubs vacating there. A lot of playing time and targets available. All right, so similar to Trey Harris, we got one other guy that is just a favorite of the program here, and we talk about a lot, and it's Kyle Williams. And I just think it's like such a clear win for him that they did end up shelling out that money to Romeo Doubs. Doubs is a solid player, but to me, like, man, BTJ, AJ Brown, like it could have been much different in terms of somebody coming in who's like a legitimate like target hog, a legitimate threat to be like, give me 25+% of the targets. We've never really seen Doubs be that player. In fact, he's someone who's often referred to as like the sacrificial X receiver because he's out there to take the coverage of the opposing top corners most of the time, to run these deep routes, this clearing out space for Jayden Reed to put up, crazy per route numbers, and Tucker Kraft to put up really productive catch and run games and all of that. So I think Doubs is somebody who's going to help the Patriots for real life. But as I look at the receiving room right now, it's Doubs and Booty as, vertical stretchers, and then Williams, who can do that. We know he can win on slot fades, and even as a rookie, he was winning down the field against man press coverage. But what we didn't really get to see a whole lot of is him working in the slot with that short area quickness where he can win routes, which is exactly what we saw in the preseason. That's what we saw in college as well. And so this is a guy they drafted pretty high. I think they're pretty high on to get him on the field, to get him looks in important situations as a rookie is pretty unusual for Josh McDaniels. And I think that speaks to how they feel about him, that he was often playing ahead of Demario Douglas, who they like a lot, has been with the team for a long time. And then they cut Stephon Diggs. So we'll see how the rest of the offseason shakes out. To me, he's in a sort of similar situation to Bill Krosky Merritt, where it's like encouraging signs as a rookie, if not a huge breakout. And the team seems to like him and hasn't invested heavily at the position. Like Doubs is a pretty decent investment money-wise, but like I said, isn't a huge target magnet or anything. And so it's like, unless the other shoe drops, which we haven't seen yet, where it's like, oh crap, there is the A.J. Brown trade or whatever,
Right.
Or they draft a receiver or something, or in Bill's case, they draft Jeremiah Love or whatever. It feels really good right now. I included him and not Bill because I just feel a little bit better about the talent, and because he's attached to Drake May. I obviously feel better about that situation than I do Washington. So wanted to shout out Kyle Williams. Where are you at on him compared to Trey Harris?
Very high, 9.4. I mean, Harris is my 10-10 of Dynasty buys. Williams is well up there. I'll start by some of the things you broke down. I mean, outside of Pop Douglas, I don't see any other competition at the moment in the slot for Kyle Williams. This seems like it's going to cookie cutter its way with Stephon Diggs moving on and Kyle Williams stepping in. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, Douglas will get his reps, but Douglas gives them something very specific, I think, from that role. Williams gives them something more like what Diggs give them, which is that ability to play inside out, that ability to get vertical over the top out of the slot. But what I loved about his rookie season is while the numbers weren't there, the proof was there on tape. He was winning on the outside against press man, against man. He could win. And that's something people didn't really know about his draft profile because he was used a lot in the slot at Washington State. And he was an explosive playmaker out of the slot, but I did believe he had the verticality to win on the outside. And I thought he proved that his rookie year. So I think, you know, in New England, they use their receivers multiple ways. Like he'll play both inside and outside. But what I love about the whole situation as far as like his dynasty value goes is they're not the type of team, Jacob, that signs Romeo Doubs and is like, all right, now he's an 160 target player. They're just like, I don't care what your contract was. You're just part of the Patriots way now. And you will get some targets sometimes. You won't other times. You're going to be exclusively an outside receiver, Romeo Doubs. And in addition to that, the Patriots have made major investments. Elijah Vera Tucker, I thought, was the best interior offensive lineman available on the entire market from an upside standpoint. I don't think it's even close. Obviously, the injury history held him back from like a record deal, but they gave him a lot of money there. Patriots spent a lot of money in general this offseason. So as far as like worrying about an A.J. Brown trade or something like that, I'm not as concerned. I think they've spent a lot and they're in a position cap-wise where they're kind of at this point not looking to make any more major investments. All good news for Kyle Williams in my mind.
Yeah, they've got on keep trade cut, Kyle Williams comes in a wide receiver 70. Trey Harris is a wide receiver 66. Players ahead of them are Chris Godwin, Alec Iomanner, Pat Bryant, Kayshon Boutte, Juwan Jennings, Rashid Shaheed, Khalil Shakir, Troy Franklin, Jalen McMillan we've talked about. I would take him over all of those players. Maybe Juwan Jennings, if he gets in the right spot, is like really valuable for a year or two.
I'm taking him over all those players.
I'm taking him over all those players.
Scroll down one more. There was one guy I would consider taking him over. I'm not doing even further down. I like the younger guys. Where was he? Pat Bryant. Pat Bryant is the only one that just has some intrigue.
Not even close for me.
I like
the situation so much better. Drake May, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Cortland Sutton is in the
way. You know what?
I
take it back. I said consider, but anyway, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
We're high on Kyle Williams. We're going to stay high on Kyle Williams.
So that's where I'm at on those guys. I think they're two of the best buys on the board, and you can get them for super cheap. If you don't like the rookie class, after we dig into that more and more over the next month, go get these guys. Go get them now. But if you want to wait and like do your rookie evaluations first, then we can do that and trade for them in a month. I don't think they're going to be that much more expensive. Maybe if we do get a QJ trade, then the value shoots up for Trey Harris. But I think people have kind of forgotten about him. I think they weren't very productive as rookies, and a lot of the times now, because we've had so many good rookie seasons at the receivers position, we're kind of like spoiled or something, and just like kind of forget about guys. And so I'm still in on both these guys. All right, we're gonna hit our first break. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about DeVonta Smith and 8 more of our favorite buys.
This is why we do this every March.
Major slam!
It is a basketball party.
It's March! Expect the unexpected!
Got a question in the chat. Is it worth drafting Doubs in redraft? Do you have any thoughts on Doubs and his fit with New England or for fantasy, for redraft or dynasty?
I want to see where the ADP falls and how that plays out. I would lean toward avoiding Doubs for me. Again, I just get the feel that the Patriots are not the type of team that's going to jam targets based on contract. And to some extent, I think we might not even see him as like an 100% snap player. Like I could see looks where it's like Matt Collins is on the outside and Kayshon Boutte's on the other side and Kyle Williams is in the slot or Douglas. So for me, it's probably going to be more of an avoid.
Okay. I think he could be decently productive. I think at this point he's probably their best receiver. And so he'll probably be treated like the wide receiver 1, and he's a good blocker. So I think he'll be out there a lot. I know I don't love saying that, but I do think he's really become a pretty dang solid pro.
Oh, he's a good player. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about DeVonta Smith. So DeVonta Smith he's going up in value. I think that people are anticipating an AJ Brown trade, but man, if AJ Brown does get moved, he's going to be much, much higher than where he currently is, which is wide receiver 23 in perceived value for Dynasty. So Rashee Rice has been dropping. He's now behind DeVonta Smith. AJ Brown is behind him. Jameson Williams is behind him. Rookie Jordan Tyson, who people are very excited for, comes in behind him. And then Zay Flowers, who we're going to talk about in a moment, are all behind him. Does that feel right? Would you take him over each of those players? JMO, Flowers, AJB?
I'm a live and die Zay Flowers kind of guy. So I probably still have Zay over him. Don't want to get into the rookies yet. AJB is an interesting one. I think I'd probably still have AJB over him. My issue with Smith is not talent, and it never will be. It's situational. But there were some signs last year early that I thought were good, as if like if Brown walks, we can get more of those slot looks and those easy layup looks. It's just like I need to see this passing game not broken before I want to get too excited about any of these players.
In Philly. Yeah, that's fair. We don't know if Dallas Goedert is going to return, and I think that would really impact DeVonta Smith. It has in the past. The splits are pretty pronounced when he's out of the picture, and he's missed a lot of time, so it's a decent sample size with Smith playing without Goddard. The receivers who are above DeVonta Smith: T. Higgins, Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison Jr., Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate, Ladd McConkey, Luther Burden, Roma Dunze, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson. Anybody that you are clearly moving behind Smith?
Probably Rome. As much as I liked Rome as a prospect, I don't really understand why he's ranked that high. I guess, but it's an age-based thing.
Yeah.
I'm not also like some of those are like so location dependent with the rookies. So I guess we won't get into that just yet. Harrison's an interesting one too, right? It's like, at what point and I just drafted Harrison high, and he's redraft super flex last summer. And it's just like, at some point, do we have to like throw out the pre-draft analysis and everything? At what point are we getting there with Marvin Harrison Jr.? Because his skill set, which should be able to win at the NFL level, feels so much to me like Romeo Doubs-esque, which is like so dependent on quarterback and how the quarterback likes to operate, if that makes sense. Like if I could get Romeo Doubs or Marvin Harrison Jr. with a Matthew Stafford type quarterback, I'm in on that pairing. But with the situations they have, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. All right. That's fair. I think these guys are ahead because of their age. Like you mentioned, they're significantly younger. DeVonta Smith is 27 years old. So he's actually older than T. Higgins, and he's like 3.5 years older than these year 3 receivers, MHJ, BTJ, and Rome. As I look at the players in this range, he just stands out to me so clearly as being the best player.
Yes.
And I don't feel great about the situation in Philly. I get that. That's totally fair. Whereas some of these other players, Brian Thomas Jr., if he stays in Jacksonville, Jameson Williams with the Lions, they're in situations that really accentuate their talent. T. Higgins with Cincinnati, McConkey, you feel good with Herbert and everything. Obviously, the Chicago guys, like their situations are great, whereas DeVonta Smith probably has the worst situation, which is why he's down here. But I do, for Dynasty, really like to bet on players when I can, which is why I've been like aggressive with somebody like Chris Olave. And to me, I think he's, in my mind, similar to Garrett Wilson, where I think that they're both two of the best receivers in the league. I do think DeVonta is better. Garrett Wilson's really, really good though.
Yes.
DeVonta is 2 years older, but to me, I just feel like a little bit more hope about DeVonta. Like I'm intrigued by their new play caller and what that could mean. And then potentially if we do see AJ Brown moved, what that could mean. Whereas like Garrett Wilson, we don't really have outs. Maybe we don't
have any outs.
The closest thing that we have is that I think their line is good and young.
And Geno has been good when he has a good line, or he's been okay when he has a good line.
I guess Geno. I guess it could be okay this year. It could be okay with Geno. That's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. I know, right? Like I feel the coaching is absurd. What they're doing.
Coaching is absurdly bad, and they got rid of Tanner Eggstrand, the guy who was like actually designing good routes for them last year. If you read some of Matt's work,
I think it's like a 15 or 20% chance that it's like okay or even good with Geno this year, which is better than last year. But I think very unlikely. In terms of realistic outs, it's probably that like maybe in 2027 if they hit on a rookie QB and the line is good and young and healthy, like then it could be good. So like there is the possible out. I think it comes in 2027.
Sure.
I would just rather bet on Smith. I feel like because it's like if it doesn't work out, then Garrett Wilson is just DeVonta Smith, but I don't know if he's as good, and he's more reliant on athleticism to win. And he's 27, in a couple of years. And so I
like that. Yeah, I like that evaluation of that, how you came to that. I'm in on that.
Once you get up into Nico Collins and these guys, like I think you could say like Pickens and Buka, maybe they're a little bit riskier bets, whereas you know exactly what you've got with Smith.
Agreed.
But basically up into this range, I don't think you can put Smith up there. But that's where I'm at on Smith is like, if I did my Dynasty rankings, he'd probably come in as like wide receiver 16 or 17. And that's way, way higher than he is now. And so I think he's somebody to explore in trades, even though people know that the AJB thing could be coming. So some details on AJ Brown. This is a 170 route sample size, which isn't a lot. I want more when, making takeaways. I look for 300 as a number that generally gives you a pretty stable projection going forward. So we're just over half of that. So take this with a grain of salt, but the numbers are pretty similar every single year, and they're pretty much right in line with what I would expect from this type of a talent. So without AJ Brown over the past 3 years, DeVonta Smith has averaged 2.6 yards per route run. 13.5% first down per route run rate is really, really, really strong. And I think that is important. That one stabilizes a little bit quicker than yards per route run. And I think it makes sense that he is just a chain mover. He's somebody that he can win in such a variety of ways that you could run the offense through him. I've heard people say like this year's Jackson Smith and Jigba, right? Like if AJB leaves, that this is that. I don't know what the new OC is going to bring in. There are reasons to guess that it could be good because he's young and he has a background working with the McShanahan tree and everything. Right. So you could just say he's going to be Click Kubiak, but we had more reasons to believe in Kubiak. We had seen more with Kubiak.
Completely agree with that. Yep.
But it's like, Jason finally freed from DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett's shadow, and then the guy that you knew was there really balls out. And I think that that's what we could have with Smith, where he can win all over the place, and you could run the offense through him. Even if it is a run-first offense with a middle-of-the-pack quarterback, it could be something really special. 30% target per route run rate for Smith without Brown on the field, 0.53 fantasy points per route run. So for reference, this is the past 2 seasons of data. 0.53 is Devontae Adams, just below Jamar Chase. That's like a top 10 wide receiver number. So I think, these are individual seasons. Sorry. I was like, there's no way Brian Thomas Jr.'s number is that high. 0.53 is Jamar Chase at wide receiver 5 over the past 2 seasons. It's just below Jackson Smith and Jigba and Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's just above Nico Collins and Drake London. So that, I think, is the upside. It's basically right where AJ Brown has been.
And we don't know what's going to happen with this Mannion system. He's such a young coach with not a lot to base it on. But just given his background, working a little bit Minnesota, Seattle, and then coaching with Green Bay and that LaFleur style, that LaFleur scheme, if it does hit, I think that Smith's skill set fits so much better for what I think Mannion's going to want to do, which is going to be similar to that LaFleur, that Kevin O'Connell in breaking intermediate level of the field, try to attack that area of the field a lot. Then AJ Brown. AJ Brown to me is like inside, quick in breaking slants and then over the top type routes. That's where he's at as a receiver. So because to me personally, I know there's a lot of speculation, but I think AJ Brown's going to be on the Eagles. I mean, this has been what I've thought for the last 12 months. Everyone talks about him getting traded, and it's like, actually, when you look at the salary cap situation, what they've paid out and the dead money, there's literally no incentive for the Eagles to trade him other than him like whining a lot and crying a lot. But like they still hold all the power of the Eagles.
I felt like it changed after June 1st or 2nd or whatever.
They can make him a post-June cut or whatever it is and like take the dead cap later and then clear it up now. But ultimately speaking, like the leverage they have, I think, in trade discussions is really poor right now. Like, look, it could all change if some team's willing to give a good draft pick for AJ Brown. I just don't know if I see that happening.
Yeah, totally fair. So let's wrap there with DeVonta Smith. I think at wide receiver 23, even if AJ Brown doesn't get traded and is still on the Eagles for next year, that's a totally fine place to buy DeVonta because of the value, because of the talent. But I wouldn't be super aggressive, I guess, because like what we saw last year wasn't, very good. That wasn't like, if he has another year like that, then he'll probably drop in value. So I wanted to mention him. We haven't talked about him that much. I wanted to get into this splits and just throw that idea out there for people to think about. My brother has been proposing trades to me. He's very excited about when he gets an idea in his mind, like the AJ Brown trade, it's like, it's happening. You know what I mean? And he's like, so how do we maximize on that now? How do we get ahead of it? And it's like, well, we don't know actually know if it'll happen. He was like, one of them was like involving our 27 first. And it's like, I don't want with that class, like I don't want to give a first necessarily. If we can work a way where we don't have to do it, then I'm in. I'm definitely open to exploring DeVonta Smith trades. I think that makes sense and could end up being a really fruitful move if the trade does happen. But I don't want to just go sell the farm for him necessarily because he is 27 years old. It's kind of like the Garrett Wilson thing where it's like, we've been waiting. We know he's so good, but like it keeps being this annoying situation where it doesn't really amount to a whole lot for fantasy. And like, how long do you wait? And all of a sudden he's 29, 30 years old,
Sure.
So there's a lot of DeVonta Smith thoughts for you guys. I think he's one of the most interesting players to evaluate for Dynasty right now. So definitely wanted to talk about him at some point this offseason. All right, we're going to hit our second break and get back. And we've got 7 more players to get into.
You think you understand how this business works, but you don't.
I now know why Mommy was so stressed.
What's the plan here?
Landman. New season now streaming only on Paramount Plus.
You still enjoying Landman?
I actually have not seen season 2 yet at all. Just so far behind. I have so many different shows that I'm watching. Haven't had a chance to yet. Eventually we will get there.
Do you know that Invincible has a new season coming out soon?
I have been told that Invincible new season is coming out, and that is up there for one of my favorite shows on TV. The first probably animated show I've ever loved, like to an extent of like thinking like this is as good as a regular TV.
It's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We got an exciting announcement for y'all. We have a first 1,000 subscribers mailbag episode coming up. So yeah, we had a lot of fun with the mailbag we did at the end of this season. Got a lot of really good questions in there. So I'm going to send out a tweet. If you reply to the tweet with questions, comments, or whatever, then we'll get to those on the show. And just keep an eye out for that. I'm not exactly sure when that'll be. Whenever we get to 1,000. So we don't know when that will be, but we're rapidly approaching. I feel like as rapid as it gets for March. We're up at like 650 or so. So when we get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll throw a little party on YouTube, and would love to see you there in the live chat. Shout out to our loyal audio listeners too. We're obviously right now focused on the YouTube product and growing this channel because I think it's fun to have like this community here. Like I put up a poll yesterday and my buddy Ethan replied to it and he's like, this poll makes me irrationally angry. It was about Kenneth Walker and the Chiefs, and there were just like 2 options: either it'll be a massive success or the Chiefs will like just be a huge bust and disappoint everybody. And he's like, congratulations on figuring out how to rage bait. This is going to be a good channel. So, but yeah, I do want to shout out the audio listeners. I've seen a lot of familiar faces on the Spotify comments section, which is cool. Appreciate y'all continuing to show up there. So you can leave questions there. or like in an Apple Podcasts review. You can leave questions there. People do that a lot. Leave feedback there as well. I've seen that, so I appreciate you guys doing that. And I do read all that. Dan reads that as well, and so we take that into consideration. Appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so we'll gather all those, include them in the mailbag show. But the live chat is just a great way to get questions in as well. But if you have any more thought-provoking questions for us that we can prepare for, think about before we jump into the show, those are great ones to get to us before we start. So send them on Twitter and reply to that tweet. All right, back to business, Dan. I want to talk about the Green Bay Packers because this Romeo Doubs thing is big. I really do think it is, which maybe sounds weird because of the way I described his impact in New England, that he's not a target earner and everything. But why I think it could be big is Jayden Reed specifically. We'll see. Maybe all of these snaps just go to Matthew Golden, but I don't know if that is going to be the case. I don't know if we can just copy paste them into Dobbs's full role. And I'm just really curious. There have been 2 moves this offseason where it's like, okay, depending on how this shapes out in terms of the receiver room filling out over the rest of the offseason, this could be the time finally for Jayden Reed and Josh Downs,
right?
Who we've been, nerding out about their per route rates for so long, but we never get to see them we never get to see them actually be like 90% route players or anything close to that. So I've got here, it's fantasy points per route run over the past 3 seasons. Look at where freaking Jayden Reed is, dude. He's tied with Justin Jefferson in fantasy points per route run over the past 3 seasons. He's been really, really productive. And Josh Downs isn't way behind him. He is right here, wide receiver 37. And you have to remember with Downs, it's been pretty rough at quarterback for most of this split, the past 3 years. It's not like Jayden Reed where he's playing in a really good ecosystem with Love and Matt LaFleur. Like, we've got a lot of Anthony Richardson affecting these splits for sure. What I think is interesting is that Downs actually has a higher first down per route run rate than Jayden Reed, who's been more like the big play threat. And then especially over the past 2 years, that first down per route run rate is really elite. It's like up at 10%, I think. Yeah, 10.2% for Josh Downs. So if you sort by first down per route run rate, he goes all the way up to wide receiver 16 over the past 2 years, above Zay Flowers, above Chris Olave, above Jalen Waddle, and right in the same range as like Devontae Adams, George Pickens, Terry McLaurin. Really good player, but we haven't had much of an opportunity to see what he could look like outside of like just the slot role. So we talk about Downs a lot. We talked about him on the free agency podcast, him and Alec Pierce, and how they're affected by the Pittman trade, what their splits have looked like without Pittman on the field. I want to talk about the Packers. Do you have any thoughts? We don't know what's going to happen with Dontavian Wicks. He's been rumored to be traded. Do you have any thoughts on Reed, Golden? You said that Golden is one of your buys. Do you feel convicted that he's a better buy than Jayden Reed at this point?
For me, yeah. And I think part of that is just based on the value point and where they're at right now, right? So I think if you look at just overall how people value Golden and some of the offers I've seen for him this offseason, some of the trades I've seen him go through on, I think most people are looking at it like this. Well, this is a guy with an unbelievably bad analytical profile. It's been beaten over my head over the last 3 months on Twitter or wherever I find my content. Everyone's like, look at this. This guy did no production at Texas. This guy has this guy's a total bust. First year, no production. Here are all the receivers that have done this in college from production standpoint, this at the NFL from production standpoint, and actually done anything in fantasy. And the answer is like none. So it's like, all right, well, just have to cut bait on this. But then you actually take the time to watch the tape, Jacob, which we did on this Packers offense. And I watched a lot of Matthew Golden last year. And I'm like, wait a second, this is exactly the guy I thought he was, if not better. Like, the catch point is unbelievable. The hands are unbelievable. His ability to separate, to me, is really good. He didn't get the ball. Like, I don't know what that is. I don't know why that is. To me, it's a rapport-based issue. Didn't have a lot of reps with Jordan Love. To me, it's also an issue of just like, where is he within the progression? He wasn't high in the progression last year. Does that mean he's not going to be high within the progression for years to come? I don't know. Romeo Doubs is gone. They believe in this player enough to draft him in the first round, something they've never done, the Packers. So I just look at it like if the tape was bad, sure, I'd be out on Golden. But the tape was good. The role will improve. To what extent, I don't know. But the price point in trades right now is so low on Golden because, again, people have just been told this story about how bad his analytical profile is, which is fine because it is. And he may end up being a bust like all those other guys. But at least the price point that I have to pay to acquire him right now is so low. Nobody's holding on to him who drafted him like, well, I use a first-round pick. You better give me something back big. No, they're not looking at it like that. They're looking at like, let me get something now that can help my team. And I don't think he should be viewed in that regard.
So here's where KTC has his value. This is just the consensus of anybody who uses this website,
Sure.
which is a lot of people, and they vote on the players, and that adjusts their value. This is where he was when he was drafted, which is 4,400. It was the composite value for Matthew Golden. That rose to 4,900 at like the peak of his value, which was right as the season was getting started, and people were pretty excited. And now we're all the way down at 3,600. So for comparison here, that 4,900 range is like all the way up where DeVonta Smith is that we just talked about.
Right.
Like a top 24-ish receiver at the peak. And when he was drafted, it was more like in this Jalen Waddle, Jordan Addison kind of range, like wide receiver 30-ish. He's now down at wide receiver 43. Jayden Higgins has surpassed him from his rookie class. Travis Hunter remains ahead of him. Michael Wilson has moved ahead of him. Wan'Dale Robinson is ahead of him. Parker Washington has moved ahead of him. His teammate Christian Watson is ahead of him. Watson has the most perceived value among the Green Bay receivers, still 26, about to turn 27 years old. Jayden Reed, also 26 years old, is down here at wide receiver 50, has the least perceived value. To me, he's the one to take a shot on because we've seen that he can be productive as a pro. I think that it's in there for Golden. Like you, I really loved his film in college and thought that we saw a lot of flashes of that translating as a pro and thought he could win vertically and horizontally. So there's definitely a lot of upside in theory with Golden, but we've got to see it, man. We've got to see him actually get targets. Jayden Reed's value has been all the way up at 6K, which is well beyond anything we've seen from Golden. I do think that the people know how good he can be and have shown that like they could get really excited about this player when he is balling out. And so if he's healthy this year and gets to play more, I think that we might see this kind of fever pitch thing happen again where like his value just shoots through the roof. I think Golden, it would take longer for people to get on board. I could be wrong with that, but unless it's like 4 straight banger games in a row to start out, like if there's like any sign of inconsistency, if he has less than 5 targets in any of his first few games, I think people are going to just assume he is exactly who he is.
That's
but
fair.
With Reed, we've seen him, like I said, be really, really productive. If you look at like fantasy points per out run and everything, I think that people have this in their memory. Wide receiver 15 over the past 3 years, just below Jackson Smith-Njigba and Justin Jefferson in fantasy points per out run. And so if he gets the role expansion, I do think that his value could shoot up in a really, really drastic way. I don't think you're getting anybody in his price range that can see that type of a value spike. And there's some interesting names that I want to throw out, though, for comparison. And so, like, Higgins is one of them. I think if he were to have a really hot start and CJ Stroud were to rebound, he would be interesting because he's still just 23 years old. So he's 3 years younger than Reed. Xavier Worthy is another one where it's like if he's actually started to deliver, he's on Dan's.
I'm so in on his current price. You don't have to pay anything to get Xavier Worthy, and why?
He's above Jayden Reed on KTC. Like maybe that's not exactly how they'll be valued in your league.
And I'd rather him than Jayden Reed on KTC.
No way, man.
Yeah, way. Rice is done there. What does Rice have this year and nothing else? Like the Chiefs aren't signing Rice. What's left there?
We've seen it with Reed. Like we know that he can be good.
Yeah,
we've never seen it with
we saw it with Worthy in the end of his rookie season, did we not?
I don't know, man.
That doesn't count?
It felt like there was a few times where they really manufactured stuff to him. But I feel like we have so much
What about
bad
the
film.
upgrade getting away from Nagy? I feel like that's huge for where they just get away from this guy who's just funneling targets to Rice as my whole version of offense.
I don't know if that it was Nagy doing that with Rice or not. I'm not sure
Mahomes?
on that. Yeah, and Reed, yeah. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's hard to know how much he influenced what was happening with the pass game.
like
I'm not saying the Worthy's
much.
a terrible idea as a buy. He has yet to turn 23 years old. He's still really young.
He was injured all last year too.
He's a talented guy, but to me, like Jayden Reed, it's just got such a clear path to breaking out. It's just that he needs to play more.
But it's not just that it's that he needs to play more. It also so the reason I see less of a clear path, I guess, as crazy as it sounds, just to debate this for a second on Reed versus Worthy. Reed's path to me has to involve somehow getting a lot of targets with guys like Watson, Golden, even Wicks, if you want to say, if he's not traded, obviously the tight ends, Tucker Kraft, and then just beating out Matt LaFleur's interest in running the football. The Chiefs have never been a run-first team with Andy Reid. They never will be a run-first team. So it just seems
they
like
might be this year.
because they signed Walker. I don't know. I feel like they just want to add a playmaker at a cheaper cost than what it would take to add a receiver. But I might be wrong on that. I just feel maybe if that changes, that's one thing. But I've always just feel like if you can get something on Mahomes, even last year before it fell apart, it looked like, well, the Chiefs are finally starting to get this pass game going. Mahomes was close to averaging like 300 a game in the first half of that season. I just think ultimately that's where they're headed, the Chiefs. That's where they're always going to want to be headed. And I think the path is Worthy's one of the guys left. And I believed in his talent. I thought he just played hurt last year. But I've always been higher on Worthy. So let me just make that clear.
That's fair. All right. Let's get to Tucker Kraft, our other Green Bay buy here. So Kraft, his value did spike this past year up to 5,300, but I still don't think people quite caught up with where he was headed before the injury. Following the injury, it's just been pretty steady where he's like at tight end 6. And I really think that he should be higher. So I'm going to give you some players who are valued similarly. Harold Fannin is just above him. And I get that there's the crazy upside with Fannin. Fannin's 4 years younger, but I do feel so much better about Kraft's ability to stay on the field all the time. And I do think that his upside is probably higher than Fannin just because he's such a better athlete, and that's really important in tight end. And we've seen that he can be a good receiver and keep getting better at all the different areas as a receiver. That's tough. And I think it's fair to have Fannin above him. But to me, I do lean slightly towards Kraft. Fannin feels a lot riskier. I'm curious how that all feels to you, because Kraft, you have the injury, so like, is he actually riskier? Is he going to come back as the same athlete? I think he will. He's a young, powerful dude.
It was just an ACL, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to look it up. Like a pure, clean ACL tear.
I think that's
ACL
right.
damage.
Yeah.
Okay. I think based on that and based on the history of clean ACLs, he will be fine when he returns. I think he showed us last year he has a different level playmaking than Harold Fannin Jr., even who has high level playmaking. Kraft was really just at a point where they were running so much of their offense through him because they felt like he was their most explosive player as a tight end, which is kind of crazy. And he was putting it on display. He had a couple special games for fantasy, games last year. So I'm with you. I would have Kraft higher. I guess you don't have to pay that same price based on age, but I like it.
He was going nuts, dude. Right before the injury, it was really getting out of control.
And it wasn't like schemed up stuff from LaFleur or like dimes from Love. It was kind of just like after the catch explosiveness and separating from defenders.
Yeah. All right. A few other names. This is in tight end premium. Luther Burden, Quinshon Judkins, and Roma Dunze. I know that you'll have him above all of them. The one I'm curious about is Travion Henderson.
Tight end premium, yeah.
Tight end premium, Travion Henderson. You've got him, Fernando Mendoza, Chris Olave. Now we're pushing up into a pretty interesting range. Because of the premium, would still rather have Kraft over these guys. So you're getting 1.5 points per catch for Kraft, plus obviously the upside for the explosive games with the touchdowns and the long catch and run plays. So I've got him significantly ahead of these guys, but I'm curious what you think as we push up into the Travion Henderson, James Cook, Kenneth Walker range. Are you still taking the premium position over those running backs?
I think so much depends on your build. So this is such a tough question. If you're in the win now mode, you want Walker, you want some of those guys. As far as Henderson goes, I can't say I was ever as high on him as others were for these types of leagues. I would probably remain low, especially within New England. I think we learned last year, like, it doesn't matter what his draft capital was. He'll play if they want him to play. And if he can get on the field by doing the little things right, which he struggled to do last year within that scheme, at least. So I'd have Kraft over them. As far as Mendoza goes, it's like, it's so dependent on where you're at quarterback, because Mendoza could be so much more valuable to me if I don't feel good about my quarterback situation than if I do.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's not easy to compare positionally there. So
Especially
just
quarterback.
as a reminder for anybody who maybe wasn't around to hear me rant and rave about Kraft
Yeah.
like this preseason and then as he was breaking out,
Yeah.
truly a historic outlier when it comes to creating yards after the catch. And I think you realize it when you watch him with the ball in his hands.
Yep.
But the actual numbers are just nuts. So this is a tweet from before the season started, and it's the best yards after catch per reception through an initial 2 seasons of a tight end's career. And some of the best names, Rob Gronkowski up here at 6.2 yards after the catch per reception, Kelsey at 7.2, Kraft's at 8.5. The only other player even above 7.5 is George Kittle at 8.7 yards after the catch per reception. So it's just him and Kittle. We know that Kittle's been one of the most ridiculous fantasy tight ends, of course. And here it is year by year. It just keeps getting better. Like in year 3, it was all the way up at 11. It was 9 yards after the catch in year 2. So I don't know like how high the ceiling really can get, because it's like he's doing stuff that only like Kittle has done, and Kittle is one of the best tight ends to ever play. And this is what he did in college too. And then when I say that he keeps getting better, it's stuff like this. We know that he's the yak monster, but then we've seen also this downfield role expansion. So through
Right.
like 26 regular games in year 2 and year 3, there were just way, way more targets past the line, like deep down the field, 15 plus air yards in the second half of this split of 26 games. So this is kind of an Azer stat here. It's a little bit weirdly
Got
specific,
Azer stat sometimes.
but it's I think it makes sense here where it's like, so it's the first 13 games of year 2. He has 4 total targets coming 15 plus yards past the line of scrimmage. And then to close out year 2, all of a sudden you start to see it where he's getting 1 or 2 of these per game, like almost every game. And then to start year 3 here, it's like basically every game he's getting one of these looks. So the first 13 games, he has 4 of these targets. The next 13 games, he has 10 of these targets. He catches all of them but 2. And that's where we started to see the yardage get kind of crazy, is that not only is he doing the short catch and run stuff that's designed with like all of the spacing and the layering that Matt LaFleur does with his routes, but he's also starting to catch some of these seam targets, some of these deeper like over post routes and stuff around the sideline. And that's something that Jordan Love had talked about a lot going into year 3. He's like, I don't know why he wouldn't be able to do that. Like, he's one of our best receivers. I think that we're going to see him used more as like a receiver and not just like the release catch and run guy.
Yep.
I think that he can do that in year 3. And then we started to see it, and then he got hurt.
Yeah. And then walk your way through just the meta of where the NFL's headed with these tight ends and the importance in the offense. That seems to me like we can see a clear path before the injury that he was the number 1 option in that offense in the pass game. Why does that not remain the same moving forward?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Over the past 2 years, obviously different situations, and I expect Brock Bowers' situation to get better in year 3 than it has been, but an identical fantasy point per route run rate between those two. It's 0.44. Trey McBride's rate is 0.45. Kraft really has been phenomenal for fantasy with his opportunities. And I think it makes sense that they're just going to continue to try to expand his role as long as his health is good here in year 4. I think he's an ascending player. So last year he ran 206 routes, which, I mean, that's more than Dalton Kincaid ran the whole year. ran 206 routes before getting hurt, and he averaged 0.57 fantasy points per route run before his injury. More than George Kittle, more than Trey McBride, more than Brock Bowers, more than Colson Loveland last year, more than Harold Fannin Jr. by a wide margin. He really was looking like maybe the best tight end in fantasy before he got hurt. It was looking like that type of upside was available to Tucker Kraft. So if you can buy him, I think he is basically a premium asset. I think he's like basically a step below that top 3 when it comes to tight ends, and he's quite a bit cheaper than that right now. I think I'd rather have him than Tyler Warren. I just think there's so much more upside.
I would definitely rather have him Tyler Warren.
Well, Tyler Warren is the 29th player, and he's
Not
the 51st player. I know, not for you, but like for these people who are like using this resource.
Tyler Warren feels very overrated as a dynasty asset to me, and I loved him as a prospect. I don't know, like they just re-signed Alec Pierce. Downs is still in the mix. They're a run first team. I don't personally believe too much in Daniel Jones, despite the re-signing. They lost Braden Smith at right tackle. I don't even know if they have a solution for that. I don't know. I don't feel as good about the Colts as maybe I should.
Yeah, it seems like they just think they're going to be able to just like recapture what they had last year.
Right.
Despite
the fact that like you watch those last 4 games before Jones got hurt. I know he was technically playing through another injury, but like it looked like they were kind of figured out. Those last 4 games, the Chiefs had a really good beat.
And all the things that you just said, like it's not exactly the same personnel. And
no, you lose your right tackle.
And Jones is coming back from an Achilles, where it's like,
right.
I don't really know. I think the Pittman injury like opens up more targets, but I don't know if it's just going to be. I mean, it was a machine last year.
Yeah.
And that was helping Warren in such a huge way.
Right.
And that's like so much of his value was based off that start of the year where people were like, holy crap, like he's, Brock Bowers or whatever. Like I was contributing to it, where I'm like sending out tweets, just letting people know, like, he's doing exactly what Bowers did as a rookie.
Statistically.
Yeah. Whereas like, I don't like, you guys know where I'm at on this. I'm leveling over him. I don't think he's anywhere near Bowers as a receiving talent.
Right.
But like, this is what he's doing. And I think people just kind of latched onto that start to the season.
Yes.
All right, let's keep talking about the Colts then. And we mentioned Downs. His value is very low as well. I think it's below Jayden Reed. So Jayden Reed is wide receiver 50. Downs is wide receiver 54. So how do those two compare in your mind?
So Downs is a much higher bet for me. I'm like 9-3 on Downs.
Oh, really?
Reasons. Yeah.
Okay. I want to hear it. Yeah, I'm very intrigued by this.
Before you can get it, I'll give you my quick, and then I'll let you do the deep dive and stats. For me, I think he's a better player on tape by a considerable margin. I think he gets in and out of his breaks quicker. I think he has more verticality to his game, though. Reed is good on both those regards. I don't want to take that away. I just think he's a little bit better at separating. And then for me, I don't see any path based on what they've done in free agency for the Colts to re-signing Downs. So once he hits free agency, I think he's going to be one of these guys that becomes a focal point in an offense, and like you finally get to see it. And how long do we have to wait for that? I believe it's only 1 more year. Is this his final year in his contract? Let me just take a look. It might not be. I think he's got maybe 2 more. 2023, 24, 25. Yeah, this is his final year in the contract, I'm pretty sure. If I'm not mistaken.
I think that makes sense. He's heading into year 4. I mean,
is he heading into year 4? I want to double check this to make sure I'm right. Yeah, this is the final year in his contract. So I don't really see any route for the Colts to re-sign him after dumping $100 million into Daniel Jones and $28 million into Alec Pierce. So I just don't even really know what you do for that. I don't see it happening. So for me, it's like you buy him now before the contract year. You don't really, and maybe it's a case of like, maybe I buy him mid-season when they're funneling targets elsewhere and the dynasty value really drops low. But I'd rather just get in now. It's a player we believe in talent-wise, and I think he'll be like the number 1 paid guy in next year's free agency.
Okay. I love that. I'm conflicted because like I totally agree with you from a skill evaluation standpoint, but I have such a hard time just expecting him to like hit the free agency market and become a focal point somewhere. And it's tough, man. It's like I'm curious. I've like thought that I should go dig up history and look at the history of receivers who are as small as Josh Downs, like under 175 pounds.
Well, we can do recent history. Wan'Dale Robinson, right? Because he got paid to be a focal point.
Yeah, I think it's a very specific situation with Wan'Dale, what happened with Dayball there. But I mean, he's much thick, like he's 185 pounds. Like Downs is so small.
Wandale's 185 pounds at 5'8". Is that true?
He's a little buff boy, dude. Yeah.
Hey, he was a thick player.
But the point I want to bring up is that, like,
178. Okay, I had to make sure.
Defenses are changing, like the way that you're able to like survive as a like lighter guy.
Fair.
Zay Flowers, we're about to talk about, is 180 pounds.
Right.
So like I don't know if it matters that much that Downs is small, but there really is very little precedent of someone at this size being like what we think he can be. I mean, our guy Rich Rebar was like, what if he had like the Antonio Brown kind of breakout where he just like gets loose finally and he's as good as we all kind of like knew he was? And it's like, man, like I just don't know.
On Downs, he had that comment you're saying?
Last off season. And it's like I think he's that good where he can win in basically all situations.
Same.
But I just don't.
As an outside receiver as well, like that's the difference between him and
I just don't know how likely is that an NFL team's actually going to do that. Like 5%, 10%,
5%, because this is a larger debate, but it's just like the wide receiver market once you go to free agency is just so desperate. The desperation is like insane. It's intense. Look at Doubs, look at Wandale. It's like there's got to be GMs around there watching the tape on Downs and be like, this dude is so good on tape. The Colts just don't need him for what he can do, and I can use him for what I think he can do.
Hell yeah! I hope
that's how I feel with the Downs situation.
I hope you're right. So it's gonna be really interesting to see what the Colts do at receiver if they draft somebody or what they're gonna do. I've heard from. I feel like the Colts think that they're good with their depth at receiver. They like Ashton Doolin and some of their other role players there. And man, if that is right, that would be so huge for Downs. And I think it would be similar to Reed, where it's like we've seen people get very excited about him, not to the extent of Reed at the height of his value, but people really like this guy for a reason. And if he starts to get on the field and get 10, 12 targets, like his value is going to go through the roof. And between him and Alec Pierce, like who's more likely to start piling up crazy fantasy games consistently? I think it's probably Downs. We're very excited about Pierce, but Downs can get these massive target numbers and then also create after the catch and win against zone and stuff. Like I think it takes some projecting to think Pierce is going to see a role expansion from what he's been. Whereas Downs is like, we know that he can do it all over. We've seen him get.
I'd love to see them give an opportunity to win on the outside. I know he can do it. I saw it at UNC. Like it's not impossible.
All right, this is interesting. So if you are this high on Downs, then he's got to be like one of your top buys because he's so. But
cheap. I don't mind waiting to buy too because I'm not sold it's going to happen this year in Indy. I think it's a 2027 and on kind of thing.
You just think Indy's going to suck?
Not suck. I just think it's going to be probably pretty similar to what we've had, which is just not enough volume to feature him. Because the problem is he wins in the same area of the field as Warren, and then it's a run first team. So it's like he's just competing with that. Like he's competing again with Warren for the same targets, unless they decide like, look, he can be Antonio Brown. We can put him on the freaking outside and he'll win with the speed release, and I can have him run a full route tree from the outside. I just don't know if I trust that, especially because it's so bad for them from a blocking standpoint to have him as the boundary receiver.
He has 13 games out of 47 career games where he has 9 or more targets. He's pushed up to 12, 12, 13, 13. Like he
can.
If he starts to do that kind of stuff, I think it's going to really catch people's eye and be, all of a sudden all these tweets are flooding in about, his efficiency numbers and everything.
I don't mind buying him now because I just believe so much in the player and the talent.
Okay. That was a good conversation because I like just thinking about it a little bit. It's like Jayden Reed, I feel better about the offense, and he's got 10 or 15 pounds on Downs. I thought coming out of college that he could play on the outside. He did that a little bit more. It felt like less of just a hope and a prayer projection on the talent that he can do that.
I agree with that.
So that I was a little bit higher on him, but I'm totally fine with pushing Downs way up, and I like it because I don't even have to trade for him because I've already got him on most of my teams.
Yeah, he's cheap. He's super cheap.
Okay, Zay Flowers, dude. Wide receiver 7 last year over 18 games for fantasy. Wide receiver 12 through week 17.
People act like it didn't even happen.
I know. He is like the definition of kind of small win player.
Yeah.
Because of the lack of touchdowns. And that's probably going to just keep being the case because he's a small guy who doesn't get a lot of involvement when they're in scoring distance. And I don't really think that it's likely that that's going to change for as long as this offense has Derrick Henry on it. So here's the profile for Zay Flowers year over year. Here's the per route data. In his third season, 25 years old, he was basically career best across the board. 0.49 fantasy points per out run. We've seen it just kind of slowly creeping up. 0.49 is really strong. 2.5 yards per out run is very, very strong. And then he's hit this 10% first down per out run rate threshold, which is an important one for receivers. He's hit that in back-to-back years now, and he's just kind of forgotten about. He just continues to, I mean, honestly, like I feel like his value is even a little bit down from where it's been. And I do not know why. Because he did have a really productive year. He's at wide receiver 28. So I gave you like 6 or 7 receivers who were below DeVonta Smith earlier, and he was the one you picked out, even though he was the one who was like the furthest away in value. And I think that's really interesting because that basically means you would have Flowers up like in the
No, I have to amend that. I have to drop.
I think it's fair. I mean, he's young. He's really productive.
High on Flowers, I think.
Why is it too high? Like
he doesn't have the touchdown upside. I guess we have to finally just.
I mean, that's fine for me if you're building a dynasty team. If I pay wide receiver 28 price and I get a guy who's like top 15 basically every single year, and I know is a really good player and might just keep getting better.
Right.
It's not like I'm buying Wandale, where it's like, the ceiling's limited and he's like hyper specific role catering that's boosting it. This is a first round pick that was really, really good on film in college, really athletic, and he keeps getting better. And like basically any film evaluator that watches him is like, yes, he's very good. He's one of the best young receivers. I am totally comfortable buying him. I think at redraft, he's like not somebody I'm super aggressive in going to get.
I think my other issue with him is I just don't feel confident the Ravens are going to re-sign him.
I don't know if it matters that much.
Okay.
I think he's that good.
He can work in other situations. I don't know how much you're right. I don't know how much Lamar's boosting him.
He's the actualized version of Josh Downs. Like
yes.
He's these guys that we've talked about, but we've seen him win on the outside.
Yeah.
And you don't love it for him to be pressed. He's better against zone coverage than man coverage. He's not, I don't think he's quite as good as like Ladd McConkey, but I think he's close. And I think he's better against zone coverage than McConkey. We've seen him be productive over multiple seasons, whereas McConkey's just really one season. I think he's that good, and he's still young. I don't really know if it matters that much if he's with Baltimore or not.
I think that's fair.
I mean, he's the same age as Chris Olave.
It's funny that we're just going to be like rolling through this current next 4 months and then August, like with the same rhetoric on Flowers. But like at the same time, like you said, we won on him last year. It wasn't a huge win, but it was a win at cost. Buying Flowers was a win.
It does matter. Like I know it gets old, I guess, but we haven't talked about him in a while.
Small wins still count.
We really haven't talked about him since the preseason, kind of, I feel like.
Yeah.
And remember the beginning of this season?
I know it looked
when
like
Lamar,
it was finally going to happen.
Lamar was playing well and he was scoring, and it was like, holy crap, here he is! Like he's like a top 8, top 10, top 12 kind of receiver. What if Lamar,
is that still possible? It is.
Yeah, what if Lamar's healthy and Zay just continues to be better?
Who did we bring in? We brought in
the
guy from Chicago, right? The guy who worked under Ben Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Declan Doyle.
Declan O'Connell. I feel like that's got to be good for Zay.
Declan Doyle. I don't know. I think Todd Monken has been good. I think the route concepts have been good. But I wanted to make the Chris Olave comparison. So over the past 3 seasons, Zay Flowers and Chris Olave, Zay Flowers has run 150 more routes. He's averaged 0.43 fantasy points per out run compared to 0.44 for Olave. He has 2.1 yards per out run compared to 2.05 for Olave. and their first down per route run rates are pretty similar, 9.3% for Flowers compared to 10% for Olave. So I do think Olave is a better player, is more capable of winning all the time against different coverages and being like the clear wide receiver one, but I don't think Flowers is far behind him. I just think Olave is much, much better against man coverage and winning like one-on-ones. But I think Flowers is totally fine and able to be your top target unless it's just like a really, really tough coverage assignment where he just gets swallowed up.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't think he's that far behind Olave. And Olave is always like, he kind of has touchdown upside concerns. And I don't think it's just about his offense. I think he can win. We saw like in the short area quickness on the out routes and stuff. And if the timing is good, then he can do that in the red zone and be a weapon. But contested catch has always been the weakest part of his profile. And we have seen him not really be a big touchdown player outside of like long play touchdowns. And so it's interesting to me that Olave has a year where he scores a bit more touchdowns than you might have expected. And all of a sudden he pushes way up to wide receiver 14.
Sure.
Whereas Flowers is still down here at wide receiver 28. They're the same age. And I think
for me, it's like the situation is so much better just to me in the sense of like Tyler Shuck is a timing-based, rhythm-based quarterback, and I don't necessarily believe that with Jackson. So I think if like, there's just skill set wise, Olave's ability to win like that with those and I think Flowers can win in a similar way. I'm not debating you on that. I just think timing based, like somehow Shuck is more of an advantage to have than Lamar, which doesn't seem to make sense, but it kind of is.
Yeah. All righty. We're going to take one more break here and then get back. We've got a few more players to talk about. 4 more. We've done 6 so far, and then we're going to get Dan's targets. We couldn't help ourselves. We've already dug in and debated.
Just a little rapid fire. They're not my main targets have already been discussed. These are a little rapid fire. Just think about it.
Either way, I think the people are probably excited, right? I think it's been hilarious. We've been putting out these shorter form videos and like, what the hell? This isn't 3 hours. What am I paying for? All right. We're gonna take a quick break here, and I'll be right back. And I want to talk you through some of my favorite quarterback buys in Dynasty. I think there's some really interesting names here that are just too cheap.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars. What a difference she has made.
The question is, can you handle it?
Can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric. Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount Plus.
You need a hug?
You need a fist?
Crutch.
Crutch, you need anything?
I do have one question.
We didn't mean right now. When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Alrighty, we're back. Dan is having some technical difficulties. He'll be right back. So my cheap quarterbacks. This is if you're competing, if you feel at all competitive, going into 2026 in Superflex leagues, and you can buy these guys anywhere really, because I do think they're just simply undervalued. The cheap quarterback buys that I have for you are Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, and Dak Prescott. These are the names, right? I feel like these are the guys that are just perpetually undervalued at the quarterback position. And so let me show you where they're at in terms of perceived value right now on KTC. So we've had a lot of guys move up. Trevor Lawrence, Jackson Dart, Fernando Mendoza moving up into this range. Even Sam Darnold, so Tyler Shuck moving up. Malik Willis moving up into this range. And so we've seen some of these quarterbacks drop as a result. You can throw Matthew Stafford into this conversation if you are looking just for 2026, that type of a window. Maybe you get more beyond that. He's down here at QB 27, below Kyler Murray and Daniel Jones and Bryce Young, and I just don't think that really makes sense. So these guys are just too cheap. We've got Brock Purdy at QB 13, below Dart, below Jalen Hurts, below Trevor Lawrence, below Bo Nix. Unless you do not think you're competitive, I think I would take him over all of those players. I get it. Dart's much, much younger, but I do feel so much better about the long-term outlook for Purdy, given in terms of the probability of him continuing to be valuable over a long-term window. Dart, obviously, I mean, I'm very excited for Dart. Dan is as well. We've talked about him a lot. He could end up being the more valuable quarterback. But I think just even mentioning the two together is important because there's a pretty significant difference between them in value right now, in terms of perceived value. And I think that's where Purdy belongs, is basically in that QB9 spot, just behind Mahomes and Herbert and Joe Burrow. And I've got some data to back that up. We're obviously very excited about the addition of Mike Evans and what that could mean for this offense. Brock Purdy has been one of the best deep passers. Statistically, if you look at charting over the past 2-3 seasons, even with 2 of those 3 seasons not really having an above replacement level deep threat on the team. And now he gets one of the best deep threats in NFL history added to the equation. So what do you think about that, Dan? Brock Purdy's perceived value is up a little bit from where it was this time last year, but basically for the past 2 years or so, he kind of hangs around in this like wide receiver or quarterback 12 to 15 range.
For no good reason, because he always outproduces it.
He does, yeah.
So, yeah, I guess it's like a factor of one, where he was drafted, people's disbelief in what his skill set is and why it makes him so successful. The fact he doesn't really run that much and doesn't get a lot of points via the run game. But he's just an easy win over and over again. I looked back at some of our content from last year, Jacob. We had him ranked all the way at QB6 preseason. We were much higher than consensus on him, and then we won because he outproduced it. Now this year he gets Mike Evans. I mean, what does that say about what he can do moving forward? It says a lot to me. It says he has a touchdown maker. It says he has an explosive player over the top who can win vertically, which is what we talked about on the Evans video. In addition to all that, he's just a player who's going to get better and better with more years in the system and more of a rapport and more work, more reps within that system. So all the numbers shout out Brock Purdy as one of the best throwers of the football in the NFL. As crazy as it sounds, a lot of people can't accept it. And I understand, some of that is Shanahan. Some of that is also him, man. He processes so well. And as you said, like when you watch his tape, he makes a lot of plays out of structure. I know Dart gets all the credit for that, and Dart did a great job of that last year as a rookie. Purdy makes surprising plays out of structure, both with his legs and mostly with his ability to keep his eyes downfield and throw the football when he breaks pocket. So we're just talking about a player who has always outproduced his ADP and now gets Mike Evans.
QB6 in fantasy points per game last year, ahead of Caleb Williams.
Basically, he perfectly hit where we had him ranked.
Just behind Trevor, just behind Patrick
Trevor, my breakout.
Mahomes.
Yeah. 1 for 2 on that. I hit on Trevor and got crushed on Stroud.
And this is with a season from hell for the Niners with the injuries.
Yeah, good point.
To still be able to produce like this, I think is really noteworthy. And then, obviously we've got the Mike Evans addition.
Yeah, what if Pearsall stays healthy all year and Evans is Evans? Then what for Purdy?
Those are some big ifs.
Not on Evans, just on the Pearsall aspect, I guess.
Like, I'm worried about both of them with health.
I guess so. Yeah, that's fair.
I'm a little bit nervous about the line. Curious what's going to happen with Trent Williams.
True.
So fantasy points per dropback has been a really predictive stat in terms of future scoring at the quarterback position. If you look at the past 3 seasons combined, Brock Purdy comes in behind only Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts in fantasy points per dropback. Those guys have obviously been, just cheat codes for fantasy, averaging over 20 points per game during this stretch, those 3. Purdy's not far behind, 18.5 points per game across the past 3 seasons. Joe Burrow's averaging 18.7 and is averaging 0.5 fantasy points per dropback compared to 0.67 for Brock Purdy. Patrick Mahomes is averaging fewer fantasy points per game across the past 3 than Brock Purdy. I just don't know why he's cheap. I don't know. He's young. He's attached to maybe the best offensive, boosting efficiency play designer of all time. At least during the time I've been watching football, like there's not been anyone like this who just boosts his offense consistently. We see players come in and do way more than they've ever done before, and then they never do anything like that again after they leave. So many examples of that across all the different positions.
Yep.
It's really been ridiculous, a hack to be like in this system with Kyle Shanahan. And we've seen that with Purdy in the fantasy scoring. And then also we like the skill set. It's not just that he's Jimmy Garoppolo here. We really like the skill set, and now we get Mike Evans. So yeah, just keep buying Brock Purdy. Yep. I don't really know why he's at QB 13. Yeah. What do you think about him versus Dart?
For Dynasty?
Yep.
It's just such a layered debate because it's like, where are you at with your roster build? Obviously, if I'm in a point where I'm rebuilding, I want Dart. If I'm in a point where I'm trying to win now, I want Purdy.
Yeah, I only want Dart if my team sucks.
Yeah.
If I have to take an extreme risk,
why not take the win?
Upside.
Yeah. Because Dart may not be a long term. Yeah. And even then, it's like Purdy is signed with this team and a lock to be there for a good amount of time. Dart, it's like if things regress bad, they might move on from him in a year.
What do you think about 26-year-old Purdy versus 29-year-old Joe Burrow?
Wow. That's so interesting. I don't think anyone else would consider that, but we can because we know that Purdy produces at levels that he just never gets credit for some odd reason. I'll still go Burrow.
I would take Purdy.
Because Burrow might retire at any point and just Burrow
I didn't want to get into that, but yeah, I don't know how he's doing.
I shouldn't even laugh. We're not making light of it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I just don't
tell
know.
He wants out of Cincinnati too.
I'm laughing because it's a ridiculous thing to try to like evaluate, and it's like, I would just take Purdy.
It's Burrow still for me.
Jordan Love is just behind Brock Purdy. He's 1 year older. He comes in at QB 14. If you look at fantasy points per dropback, he looks really strong in that number. Where he doesn't look as strong as fantasy points per game. That's a little bit affected by him missing decent chunks of some of these games where he gets hurt and leaves early. That's happened a lot.
Josh Jacobs scoring a touchdown every game doesn't help.
That too. Yeah. So Jordan Love over the past 3 seasons is averaging 0.61 fantasy points per dropback. Drake May is averaging 0.61 for his career. Where was May at this year? 0.69. So 0.61 is in the same range as Trevor Lawrence this past year, Caleb Williams. Jordan Love averaged 0.58 fantasy points per dropback this past year. So that was above Dak Prescott. That was above Patrick Mahomes, who was producing at a very high level. He averaged 20 points per game before getting hurt. On a per dropback basis, that's where Jordan Love is. This is one example of the per dropback stuff. Like, I don't think it has to be predictive of points per game going forward. It has been at times, as it's decently predictive, but I just don't know if there's any reason to expect Green Bay to like drop back more. I think we kind of know what we have with them, and still,
Fair.
I think he's a decent buy, because what I do think is that Jordan Love could get better. I think that the talent is immense for Love. The skill set in terms of what he's able to do and the types of throws that he's able to make is immense. I think that he's the ceiling for what he could be, because he also has flashed elite ability to work in the pocket and avoid sacks. And so it's always like this, if it all comes together thing with Love that like feels impossibly hypothetical, like it feels like that's not actually going to happen, because we've seen it not really happen for a while now, and the Packers feel like they always are like a disappointment or whatever. He just lost
for fantasy.
Yeah. He just lost his top receiver. So like, I don't blame anybody for not believing in it. But I do think there's the potential outlet for more from this guy as he enters the prime of his career. He's 27.
It's a buy, right?
Half years old.
It's a clear buy, because the only thing holding us back is volume so far. And it's like, well, there was that stretch where the Packers didn't have a run game and their defense was playing bad football. I think it was like 2.5 years. It was the Tommy DeVito year when we had stupid DeVito winning us games and costing us Drake May. And by us, I mean the Giants. Sorry to bring that into a fantasy pod. But there was that stretch of of games, if I remember, where Love was lighting it up from a fantasy standpoint. That was 2024 second half, I believe. And that run game was bad for the Packers at that point, and their defense was not playing well. Problem is their run game is good now, and Jacobs is good, and their defense is good. So I don't know when we get back to that point. But the only negative to his profile, right, is just the fantasy points per game, and that's just not throwing a lot of touchdowns.
And it's not even that bad. It's basically where he's valued in Dynasty, so that doesn't make sense to me because he's not old. He's 27 years old.
Right.
And I don't know if the increase, I don't know if the increase in volume is very likely. At some point it might come, like in his 30s or something, but right now it doesn't feel that likely.
Yeah.
To me, it just feels more likely that he could be healthy and take a step forward in terms of just cleaning up some of the little things. And then it turns into this kind of crazy efficient season in terms of producing long plays and touchdowns.
It's very much like the Purdy Pat. Like that's where we have to hit. It has to, but to get to the Purdy Pat, like the reason Purdy is Purdy in my mind is like the 49ers use their passing game as an extension of the run game, as in with Christian McCaffrey and Kittle. We saw a little bit of that with Kraft last year. We just haven't seen that with any running back in the Packers system yet.
Yeah. Okay. I think Jared Goff, man, is like criminally underrated. Shout out to my brother on this one.
How old is Goff now?
I wasn't even thinking about. He's only 31.
Okay, that's young for quarterback.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about him as a buy, but he's just like as a byproduct of guys moving up, he's moved down. Tyler Shuck, these guys are moving up ahead of him. Fernando Mendoza, and I mean Malik Willis he's about to move ahead of him in perceived value. So Goff is coming in at like QB 22, QB 23. You can get him for you might be able to turn like a first round pick this year into Goff if a team is excited about the rookies and you're on the clock or whatever. Sometimes you can get crazy deals done in these rookie drafts. And it's like, why is his value down? Like he doesn't have Ben Johnson, but like we know who Goff is. The weapons around him are insane. Yeah. And the line I feel really encouraged by, like going forward right now, where we're at with the talent on the line. I thought that
Cade Mays was a great scoop up for them.
I thought that was like the perfect ad. And so like this last year wasn't, quite as good as some of the seasons, but he still averaged 17.5 fantasy points. And his fantasy point per dropback number was 0.59. It was identical to Caleb. It was just below Trevor Lawrence. It was above Dak and Mahomes. And it's like, I don't. Yeah. People act like he's like Stafford's age or something.
Yeah, yeah, he does seem like a pretty good buy.
We could have like 7 more years of Goff.
It does feel pretty good,
and he's just too cheap. Like he's just like way too cheap. That's I don't know. Like that's a really simple case, but I just don't really get why he's valued the way that he is. Would you rather have him than Sam Darnold?
Ooh,
Darnold's 29.
Yeah, I'd rather have Goff than Sam Darnold.
I mean, Goff massively outproduced him this year.
Right.
and Darnold lost Clint Kubiak.
I just trust that offense to Darnold lost Kubiak. I trust that offense to be more explosive in general.
Would you rather him than Baker?
Yes.
They're the same age.
Yes, I would.
Goff's
just wildly underrated, I guess.
Goff's half a year older than Baker. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. So yeah, Goff is like just one of the best buys in Dynasty, hilariously. Yeah. I would not have thought of it. Dak Prescott is the other one who's like always too cheap. But he had such a good year last year that his values rebounded a little bit, but still he comes in at QB 16. So he's a year older than Goff. He'll be 33 this season. But I think we could get 3 to 5, 6 more years of Dak potentially. And I feel really good about the young coaching staff they're building out there, and the weapons around him are good. The line, I think, has the potential to be one of the better lines in the league. So everything feels good with Dak. I think if he's a little bit more specific, where it's like if you aren't a contender, then I don't think he's like drastically undervalued or anything. Like Goff, I would be fine buying basically anywhere because I think he's got a decently long window, so it doesn't have to be just a win now buy. Dak feels a little bit more like just a win now buy because you kind of do have to pay a little bit more of a premium for him. But I still think he's a good buy. So he's just below Purdy and Love and Mendoza. What do you think about Dak compared to Trevor Lawrence? It's a weird comparison. Trevor is significantly more expensive. Over the next 2 years, I see them similarly. Do you think that Trevor clearly is more likely to score more points than Dak over the next 2 years?
No, not over the next 2 years.
He barely scored more than Dak this year, and that was with, I think, a pretty unrepeatable number of rushing touchdowns. I do think Liam Cohen helps his quarterback, like empowers them to run.
Good. Yeah.
But still, I don't think he's going to score 8 touchdowns on the ground again. And he barely outscored Dak with that.
I also, the other flip side of that, though, is just like he did his best work in the second half. And it's like, what if they figured out what it takes for this offense to click and make him, that type of quarterback? He could be potentially, in my mind, like a top 5 guy, which I don't know if Dak ever has that upside because he doesn't run.
Yeah.
So no, I actually think I'm going Lawrence over Dak, but
I definitely think Lawrence is more valuable than Dak.
I know what you're saying.
I think their 2-year outlook is very similar.
Okay.
And I feel way, way more confident in like knowing who Dak is than I do in Lawrence. I think, it could be good again with Lawrence. And I believe in Liam Cohen. I feel confident in him. But there still is this possibility that it gets worse next year, that teams adjust in some way, like, and figure this out a little bit. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's just he feels riskier than Dak to me, and he's worth so much more. I don't know. I just wanted to bring up, I'm curious, like, if Dak is even undervalued or if it's just like he's a good buy because he's somebody who can give you really, really good production for multiple years, and his price tag is cheaper than that should be. And so it's not necessarily about comparing him to Brock Purdy or Love or Lawrence or whatever. It's just that, like, you can get this pretty dang valuable asset in super flex leagues. He's going to be probably one of the top scorers for the next 2 or 3 years of any player in super flex leagues. And you can get that for, I don't know, like a first and a little bit more or something. You can maybe get that for like a first and Michael Penix or something like that, like you might be able to do that depending on the team. And I think that continues to just be a good opportunity to explore anywhere that you need help scoring points.
That's fair.
All right, let's finish up. We've got a few young guys that will be quick discussions. Terrence Ferguson, we've talked about a lot. I'll point you again to this awesome episode that we did where we talked about 50 plus rookies, an even longer episode than today's. Go check that out. If you're curious about Terrence Ferguson and a lot of these rookie tight ends, I think it's a really, really interesting rookie tight end class. And Ferguson is the most slept on, I think, of the bunch in terms of having elite upside. And people are kind of catching on to it. Like, I do think that a decent number of people know about it, Dynasty players. And maybe that's, the person who drafted him, like, still believes that exists for him. But they did re-sign Tyler Higbee, it's not clear that Terrence Ferguson's about to step into some monster role, right? He was in a role this past year where it wasn't relevant for fantasy at all. So everything with Terrence Ferguson is hypothetical. And so I do think he's gettable in trades. And I think it's worth exploring anywhere that you want an upside shot at tight end. So where he comes in is tight end 18 in KTC's perceived value. The tight ends who are near him that are in the same age range are Mason Taylor for the Jets, just above him. Mason Taylor is a year younger. And then Elijah Arroyo for the Seahawks is the same age and is just below him. Similar type evaluation. Some other young tight ends, AJ Barner for the Seahawks is 1 year older and is worth slightly more. Brenton Strange is 2 years older for the Jaguars. He played really well this year. He's worth slightly more. And then, like, these guys aren't exactly young anymore, but Dalton Kincaid and Isaiah Likely are 26 years old. Ferguson is 23. Those guys are worth a decent bit more. They're worth, in tight end premium, they're worth close to like a first round pick this year. And then you get to a really interesting range. It's just below Tucker Kraft, Sam Laporta, which, by the way, one of the best buys, hands down. He's another guy who didn't make the list today. He didn't make the list today because we've already talked about Sam Laporta. We talked about Sam Laporta on the 10 busts from 2025 fantasy football who we still believe in episode. And I think that it's an interesting discussion. I think he's one of the best buys point blank for tight end premium leagues. He's just way, way, way too cheap. But below Kraft, Laporta, Pitts, you find this awkward range where it's like Sadiq, the rookie this year that's so ridiculously athletic, and then Aronde Gadsden, and then Isaiah Likely, and then Dalton Kincaid. And it's like, we don't even know if Gadsden, Likely, or Kincaid can be more than 50, 60% players in terms of being on the field all of the time. There's clearly upside for each of those players. But to me, the upside for Ferguson is that he can be a full-time tight end who's out there all the time and can be productive and efficient. And that kind of a player, if actualized, pushes up into this range where we've got Sam Laporta. It takes a lot of things coming together for that to actually happen with Ferguson here. And like you mentioned, he's kind of on the clock potentially with Stafford, right? Where it's a kind of awkward where it's like, okay, we're fine being patient on Ferguson's timeline because that makes sense. You shouldn't expect him to come in and play some massive role as a rookie. That's really rare for tight ends to do that. And he's with Sean McVay, who brings rookies along slowly. But at the same time, like, how does that actually align with Stafford if he's going to be out of the league in the next year or two or three?
Right.
So I don't want to promise you anything with Ferguson. But to me, as you look at the tight ends beyond Sadiq, basically, who is the most likely to then join that range of the Sam Laporta types? It's him. I think it's pretty clearly him. I don't think Mason Taylor has that skill set. He is somebody who can play in all situations, but Ferguson blocked better as a rookie. And I don't think Mason Taylor offers nearly as much as a upside athlete receiver. And so I don't know. Beyond that, it's Strange, Barner. I think those guys are really good role players. I just think Ferguson offers more because he's somebody who can like be potentially dominant in scoring distance. And he's somebody who can make long catch and run plays. And that is just a pretty unique upside at the tight end position. So that's my Ferguson case. I've talked about it a lot. I'm going to give you guys a cut up on Twitter at some point to show you some of the Ferguson film. But what do you think, Dan, just kind of talking through the tight end landscape and looking, is there anybody where you think I'm off, where you do think that they're valuable? Because if so, they deserve a mention, Like I know you really like Brenton Strange, and it's like there's this range after Sadiq and Kyle Pitts and Laporta is very weird. And any of these guys could easily push up. It feels very fluid to me, where we just saw like Harold Fannin go from like tight end 20 or whatever to tight end 5,
right. I mean, for me, one that I like a lot that we just briefly discussed is Isaiah Likely. It just couldn't have gotten better for him from a fit standpoint. I don't know for sure, but my guess is the reason the Giants signed him right away in free agency is they looked at this market. They said, I need to get a playmaker for Jackson Dart. I cannot fight in the receiver market. There's nowhere to go there but paying Romeo Doubs 20 or Wan'Dale Robinson. We already had 18. Let me figure out a cheat code. My cheat code is Isaiah Likely, a guy who hasn't put up the statistical production yet, but flashes in massive ways on tape. I mean, you watch him on tape, the way he moves in and out of his breaks, the way he high points the football. He looks like if he gets the right role, he could be a superstar from a talent standpoint. Well, isn't he just about to get the right role? Like, to me, there's going to be some frustration, possible scenarios that play out for Giants fans where it's like, why is Neighbors not doing anything? It's like, well, defenses are rotating coverage over the top. They're cloud covering him like they do Jefferson. And now we're just pounding targets to Likely like we did Rashee Rice with Matt Nagy's offense. And then all of a sudden, Likely's like racking up these 10 reception games, Jacob, and like sometimes turning them into big production with scoring or big plays. I feel like Isaiah Likely to me is just an obvious buy. I don't even really understand why he's ranked so low after getting the perfect fit for him.
It's just projecting, right? Like,
right. You have to project.
Yeah. And it's fair to make the projection. We've seen enough flashes, and he was a really productive college player. So he likely was who I pointed towards a lot
Right.
when giving people the case for Harold Fannin Jr. I would show them that athletically he actually is pretty similar to Trey McBride. He's only a little bit smaller than McBride,
Right.
but that little bit does matter at tight
It
end, I
does.
think, when it comes to being able to be a blocker and stay on the field. But
he's a
just
good move blocker in space. He's not a good on the line of scrimmage blocker.
And so likely was, I feel like the more realistic comparison for Fannin was a very, very productive player at a small school, wasn't some overwhelming athlete, but does clearly move in a way that works for getting open and even making players miss. I don't think he's as good as Fannin at either of those two things. But they're sort of similar. They move differently, but they're sort of similar as players. They're going to have to get some sort of pseudo slot role to be productive, and they're going to have to be on a team that is fine with their deficiencies and is willing to feature them as one of their top pass catchers and value what they bring in that area and in order to get them on the field. And for likely, it didn't really look like that was going to happen, and you thought maybe that was just because of Mark Andrews, but we were having a hard time getting him in this fantasy relevant role, a regular role. And so that did give me some pause on Fannin. But then when you saw him actually installed in that role, it's like, okay, yes, the value is there because he's such a good receiver. That's I haven't gotten to this guy's film yet, so I don't want to get carried away with this. But I think in theory, that's kind of the hope for this Eli Stowers guy.
Stowers, yeah.
I know his analytics are crazy.
Crazy.
So I'm really interested to get to his film. But yeah, that's likely now with the Giants, and Dan obviously has thought about this a lot, has the potential to slide into a role similar to Fannin. I don't think he's as good of a player as Fannin. He's obviously, 26 compared to Fannin, is not even 22 years old yet.
It's a similar role to Fannin, but it's also potential to be with much better quarterback play.
Yeah,
potentially.
No, I mean that's fair. I think that's I would think people do need to just keep in mind that there is a downside for Fannin. One, it's that the coaching change is happening where we don't know what his role will be. We don't know if they will be as willing to stomach his deficiencies as the previous regime was. And two, the other day we talked about Malik Willis and the Dolphins, and I said they're probably the best bet to be the lowest pass volume team in the league. And I was like, well, maybe the Browns.
Right. And a Matt Nagy offense with the Giants is just always pass first.
I do think that, yeah, they're going to pass significantly more. So I hear you on likely. I think that's pretty interesting. He's not someone I've really been aggressive in buying at all because his value is shot way up, but there is still room for it to go higher if he starts producing. His per opportunity stuff was really, really, really good before this past year where he played hurt a lot.
Right.
And I think if you just take that out and then he's producing really well this year, then it's look at, how good he can be, and now we're starting to see it. So it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. With Wan'Dale gone, there are a lot of targets vacated for the Giants. Okay. I'm glad that you brought him up. There's one more tight end, and it's Theo Johnson. And I'm really curious to get your thoughts on Theo because while likely's value is spiked, Theo Johnson's has crashed.
Right.
And I think will probably keep dropping. But I actually don't know if likely is going to negatively affect him, maybe at all. I'm curious to get your thought on this. So they move on, or they lose Daniel Bellinger. Daniel Bellinger has been a regular part of their offense. He plays a decent amount and is a good two-way tight end. He's not a terrible receiver, and he can block. And so you basically replace him with likely. And to me, that kind of slides some of the Theo slot work to likely and then moves Theo more into the Bellinger role. Does that click for you?
No,
is that okay?
No.
How do you think these two coexist?
Yeah. So the Bellinger role is basically what they're going to get out of Patrick Ricard now, because Bellinger was more of that H-back, using him as a sniffer. He was not in line a lot. Theo was the inline guy and playing almost every snap. Theo will continue to be the inline guy. and he should, at least theoretically, play almost every snap. The only times I can see him coming off the field are when the Giants go 21 personnel and occasionally want to go with Ricard and Likely instead of Ricard and Theo. Those will be the only times I can see that happening. But even more, the base package will probably be 12 personnel with both Theo Johnson and Likely on the field. Now, I don't see this really impacting him either, because last year it says I just see basically I see a lot of the targets that went to Wan'Dale going to Likely, but not all. And I think that creates some opportunity for more for Theo Johnson. Now, the Neighbors factor is important to note, though. Like Neighbors was out last year. We saw increased production and increased target volume for Theo Johnson. Will that continue with Neighbors on the field? So for me with Theo, I really like him as a blocker. I like his frame of the line of scrimmage. He's a frustrating receiver, though, man. Watching Giants games, there's just so many concentration drops. You see a flash of him being able to create after the catch, but then it's not consistent enough. Looks a little bulky at times. Red zone, similar type situation. Like he'll make a big play, but then he'll make a routine drop that would have been a touchdown. So I wonder if there's some level of frustration with Theo from within the organization that they haven't voiced yet.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think that it would that could affect his playing time? That he could?
No, because he's an inline blocker that can also catch, and that's so rare to find.
That's what I see. That's what I think is just like his role feels insulated.
Fair.
And nothing then has changed really. Is like they kind of maybe the better way to frame it was that they just kind of replaced Wan'Dale with Likely.
Yes, but then also add Neighbors back into the mix. That's the bigger problem.
Yeah. So why I would buy Theo is not because I need him to produce this year.
Okay.
It would be like I have a team that's tied in premium where I have a roster spot and you can get this guy for nothing. And he's extremely, extremely athletic.
Extremely.
And he's shown some ability to get open and some ability to create with the ball in his hands.
Yep. Agreed on all.
So to me, it's like there is like at least a framework of something that could be interesting for fantasy here. And the price is just plummeting here where it's like he's below Cade Otton. He's below Elijah Arroyo, who, I mean, like, I guess in theory could be this. Like, the idea is that Arroyo could be this, or maybe a little bit more. Like, he's the great athlete and everything. He's got the size, but it's like, so is Theo Johnson. And I know Arroyo's younger, but TJ Hawkinson is above him. And like, I feel like if you can get him for nothing, if you don't feel good about your rookie picks, why not just get him if you've got a team where it's fine for you to use a bench spot on a stash. I think he's a pretty interesting stash. Among the 25 or younger tight ends, I don't know if there's anybody else who profiles as somebody who can be like in every type of situation on the field tight end that also gives you some receiving upside, can give you some big plays. And what if he does get better at the concentration stuff as he has more and more time to work on his game,
Yeah. I mean, the profile to me is like similar to, I don't want to say similar to, because he has more athletic upside, but maybe a Mitchell Evans type. If that makes sense, like a Gunnar Helm, but not as upside from a receiving standpoint, maybe as Gunnar Helm. I don't know. It is a pretty unique, I'll take that back. It is a pretty unique skill set because his frame allows him to be on the field so much, because you are perfectly fine as a coach putting him at the end of your line of scrimmage and accepting the fact that he can take on the edge defender and he can and it's to the point where the edge defender, he can win that battle and the edge won't win and set the edge every time. That is something you can do with Theo that you may not be able to do with maybe Gunnar or Mitchell, though I think they both are capable of that. So that does give him a chance for more playing time. It's like, but where are the targets coming from? Where's the fantasy production coming from?
Yeah, I don't. That's just the issue. It's just a bet on the athleticism eventually mattering in some situation where it's good.
Sure.
Because like I think it doesn't really make sense to compare him to those guys because he's just so much more athletic. Like he's just a different type of, like there's not much like him that exists. And I know it hasn't been super productive yet, but like if it starts to hit, like it's different, you know, like it's somebody who's a full-time tight end that can actually like make plays. I like both those guys that you brought up, and I think that they can have productive careers. But for him, it's like pretty easy. Like all he has to do is like catch the ball.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And like if he's in a good offense and he is able to catch the ball, then
he's got a rapport with Dart. So there's some upside to it.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring him up because I think he's basically going to become like Ben Sinnott or whatever, where he's like just like trash. Like if he in people's minds, like if he just is completely irrelevant for fantasy this year because he's the 4th target or whatever on a middling offense, then you can get him for nothing. And I think it's not a bad bet for 2 or 3 years from now. It's similar to like Michael Mayer, but I think we've seen more flashes of his skill set being something that could translate if he can catch the ball. So just want to bring him up because when the hell else are you going to talk about Theo Johnson? No time probably for multiple years. Right? Like unless he starts to make plays, like we're probably just not going to talk about Theo Johnson ever again. And if you're in a deep league, I think that is an interesting idea. Sure. People are like, shut up about Theo Johnson, talk about Gunnar Helm. We talk about Gunnar Helm every day. Yeah. Like go watch the 50 rookies episode and see how high I have Gunnar Helm ranked and listen to me talk about him there. Okay. Last one here, another hypothetical. 2 names for you, depending on where you fall on Jonathan Brooks. Then maybe Trevor Etienne is your buy. I think they're both too cheap. Jonathan Brooks' value is moving up because Dave Canellis can't stop talking about how beautiful and powerful and strong he is out on the practice field. Do you know what I'm talking about? Beautiful is such a weird word to use when talking about him.
It is odd. It is odd.
So his value's moving up, but he's still below Trey Benson, J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Gainwell, Ramondre Stevenson, Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard. I think it would not take much at all to see him move up into like the top 25-ish players at running back. I think basically if he gets on the field and splits with Chuba Hubbard at all and looks better than Chuba Hubbard, like he's shooting up those rankings. Like we're already seeing it right now just because of quotes. You know, we're already seeing the price move up. And it makes sense because he was the freaking RB1 in his draft class. It wasn't a great draft class, but still, like when you've had a guy be picked in the top 5 or whatever for dynasty drafts, his value on KTC has gone all the way up to basically right around 5K, which is Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Kyron Williams, Chase Brown. It's just below Breece Hall, Bucky Irvings, and Quinshon Judkins. That's where he's been, and I think that we're not too far removed from that in people's memories. And so if he gets on the field at all and looks like a good playmaker, I think his value is just going to start drastically shooting up. And if he starts taking work from Chuba, if he starts to do the Rico Dowdle from last year, but wait a second, he's 23 years old,
right?
Then where does he go? You know, like top 15. I think a month into the season, Jonathan Brooks could be like the running back 14 or something in KTC.
If he regains full form, yes.
Yeah, this is obviously projecting. It's just like it's just
we have no idea where he's going to be at after the injuries.
But if the reports about his health are real and he looks like the guy that they were excited for when they drafted him in the 2nd round, and he starts to take work from Chuba, then I think he'll be a very valuable, like hypothetical young running back.
I want to be clear about Brooks. When he came out of the draft, Jacob, I don't know where you stood on it, but where I stood on it was if this guy just wasn't buried behind Bijan and actually had more opportunities, he would have been viewed as like that tier A type prospect. That's how I felt about his game. I loved his game on tape.
What do you mean by tier A? Are you talking about Love? Are you talking about Genty?
No, not okay. Maybe not quite that. More
Hampton,
Marion Hampton range. Yes.
I had him slightly below Hampton.
Okay.
Yeah. It would have been like
I had Hampton higher, let me be clear, but just that range of backs.
Yeah. It would have been like I think Trayvon's probably the best comparison.
I liked him more than that.
It's weird because we had a long history of Trayvon. We felt pretty dang good about who he was, whereas Brooks, we had such a small sample of who he was.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a hard evaluation. But I'm just saying, man, look at running
He's
backs.
23 years old, as
We're
Johnny said.
we're kind of strapped at running back right now for dynasty purposes. We've got some, Christian McCaffrey and those guys still putting up crazy numbers, but it's like the running back 11 is Quinshon Judkins, the running back 12 is Breece Hall, running back 13 is Bucky. Those are good players, but there's like pretty scary questions for all of them right now in terms of their outlook. And so to me, like, yeah, if this guy starts playing well, it's realistic that he could really push up into that range. And that would be like, I don't know if you're going to find anyone who's going to like more than double their perceived value in a matter of weeks. And that's on the table for Brooks. So like I've seen YouTube comments where they're like, why are we hyping Brooks up so much? It's not that I'm assuring you that Brooks is going to do this. It's just that like, this is a really wild potential swing here that's available for this player. And so if you want to take a shot on that, I think it makes sense. If you have more than one dynasty team, I think it probably makes sense to have Brooks on at least one of them. And so I would go see what the price is. If you don't like this draft class, I would go see what the price is. See if you can buy this guy with picks. I think that makes a ton of sense. And then if you are just like, I want to believe what I've seen, and what I've seen is Trevor Etienne actually got on the field last year and looked good. They drafted him, they've drafted him pretty high and he looked good.
True.
Then go buy Etienne, if
I like them both, honestly.
Yeah, me too. I thought he played great. And if Brooks doesn't recover well, which is totally a valid like outcome that we could be looking at here. Trevor Etienne's running back 65 below Isaiah Pacheco, So yeah, if you want to take the discount, he's free. If you want to trade your 3rd or 4th round picks this year for him, he is pretty much free. And I think that that's a totally fair way to use your fake dynasty bucks. That's 10 or 11 players or 15, I think, with all the quarterbacks. Let's get to a few more here. Dan's targets. You could rapid fire if you want, or we could go for 2.5 hours. I don't care.
No, we can just spend a little bit of time wrapping. And I mean, just a little bit of time wrapping up on some of these guys. We've talked about a bunch of them, likely golden. Terry McLaurin, to me, great time to buy Terry McLaurin right now. They got rid of. He's cheaper than he ever should be. He's re-signed to a long-term contract. They got rid of Debo, and his rapport with Jayden's only going to grow. And Jayden is just at a point where people aren't really recognizing how good he can be. And so I'm very excited about McLaurin.
Do you think the Giants might actually draft Jeremiah Love?
Yes, unfortunately.
Gosh.
Well, why? For Scattaboo.
For Scattaboo, for him, the Giants are one of the, like, part of the reason I'm not into the likely stuff is like this. I don't want to invest in this 26 Giants team. They're like at the very bottom of the list of teams I want to be drafting players from that aren't Malik Neighbors.
Even though you love Dart, that's crazy.
I live in Kansas City. I live in Kansas City, brother.
Nagy your way through this.
Yeah, I just
we that low on Nagy that Dart can't even overcome Nagy.
Dart might be able to, and maybe that's good for him and Neighbors. Maybe it's good for Scattaboo, but like I don't want to buy the ancillary pieces, and I don't really want this to be where Love goes. I think it would be pretty dang fun for him to be in Washington with Jane Daniels.
Oh yeah, of course. They just signed Rachaad White, by the way, the Commanders, as we were talking.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens in that. But yeah, I think it's possible they go up. So I'll go McLaurin as one of my guys. I said check, and in the notes I said checking on the price tag of Chris Olave. I know he's high. I know the price tag is high. But damn, man, Chris Olave is a damn good football player. And I think that rapport with Shuck is only going to grow, and I think it's only going to get stronger. And we could be looking at like he's being bought at a price that he wasn't playing to last year, and he just plays again to that level, which was wide receiver 1. I also put in here Zach Charbonnet. The Seahawks get rid of Ken Walker. Charbonnet could be back sooner than expected from this.
What are they going to do running back? I thought that might be the Rachaad White spot. While we have been recording this podcast, by the way, McLaurin has moved behind Jayden Reed. He's now wide receiver 50.
Yeah, that's insane.
He's behind Cortland Sutton. They're the same age.
Absurd. It's absurd. With Jayden Daniels as his quarterback.
That's really cheap.
And then as far as Charbonnet goes, I think they'll probably sign like a Brian Robinson or something, but he could be cheap. I had Williams in here. We've talked Tootin. I said Xavier. I have Xavier Worthy in here. We've talked about him a little bit earlier. So the last one that we just haven't discussed is it's similar to my likely buy. I'm buying Wan'Dale Robinson. It's literally the perfect fit for him. But like at this point in time, why not buy on Wan'Dale Robinson? They signed him to be the focal point of that offense. They have nothing else to Humanor and the kid from DK, the kid from Wisconsin and Florida, are not going to surpass him. And I don't think they're going to do much at receiver in the draft, to be honest. I think they're kind of fill out their trenches from this point on to improve their team. So I feel like Wan'Dale is going to be a very focal point of this team. We saw last year when he did have Russell Wilson and when he did have Jameis Winston, there was some explosiveness, verticality to his game, some big play potential in fantasy. He had a couple of weeks in the top 5. So like, I'm in on it. I don't know where the price is at now after the signing. It probably went up slightly, but not to the point where I think it should be.
Did you mention Tuden?
I did.
Okay. All right.
No, I'm getting a little queasy on Tuden because I like Chris Rodriguez's game, and I don't love the fact that Chris Rodriguez, A, was signed to a bigger contract than people thought he'd be, and then B, like had that awesome season with Liam Cohen when Liam Cohen was in college. That scares me a little bit.
Sure, yeah, there's familiarity there. Liam Cohen went out and got him, and he's been very good.
Did you see the Cohen quote on him from college?
No.
I wish I still had this up. It was essentially something like, he did all this, and I feel like most of what he did was him when we watched the tape. It wasn't us blocking. Like, that's just like a wow.
Well, that's the really important point I wanted to bring up. I'm going to dig up some stats too. But the point is, I saw somebody on Twitter say that Tuden is Kenneth Walker and C-Rod is Charbonnet. And I think, so the video that I just did on Kenneth Walker, I don't know if you saw the stat on where the running back was met at or behind the line of scrimmage. Okay. Almost every running back that has like 50 or more of these runs has negative total yards on these runs where they're met at or behind the line of scrimmage. They're not getting positive yards. There's a few guys who were. It's Bijan. It's Jonathan Taylor. Right. It's Zach Charbonnet. He actually gained positive yards on these runs, whereas Walker did not. And then I think that did end up mattering where they started to give him the ball more because these runs are happening a lot. Both sure. Walker and Charbonnet ranked in the top 10, top 11, I think, among all running backs in the number of runs where they're met at or behind the line of scrimmage last year, which is pretty nuts for a shared backfield to have, two guys in the top 12. And Travis Etienne was really high. He was like 4th or something in the number of these runs. I don't feel convinced in the offensive line talent. I think that the scheme is good, but I think there are going to be a lot of plays where they do get blown up at or behind the line of scrimmage. And if C-Rod is viewed as somebody where it's like, that was him, it wasn't the blocking.
Sure.
I do think that could matter. That's basically exactly what happened to Bill this year. Is he was playing really well when the system was and the ecosystem was good, and then it got bad because the quarterback and the receivers were all out, and so there's like all these defenders up around the line of scrimmage all the time, and that's when they're like, C-Rod's better in this situation, I think Tuden is good in the short yard situations. We've seen that, so maybe it won't matter as much for him. Last year he was no nonsense. He was not Kenneth Walker. So maybe it won't matter as much. Maybe he'll just be good enough that he'll be the clear best option in basically any situation that's not an obvious passing down where they'll go to LaQuint Allen.
Yeah.
But C-Rod's really good at this, and the coach likes him in this specific situation. And so that's worth mentioning for sure. Okay. I'll get back to C-Rod. I want to look at the stat because it is pretty crazy. I remember I looked it up last year during the season. It was like, since entering the league, he's like only Kyron Williams has been higher success rate than him. And like so much of that is Sean McVay. So basically it's like he has the highest success rate since entering the league or something.
He's a good player.
Let me look it up. All right. I wanted to spend a little bit of time with some of these guys you mentioned. So Olave, you want to do a price check on. We talked about him a little bit earlier.
Yeah, we did.
In reference to some of the other guys around him. Olave or Nico Collins? I know that we're both Olave over Garrett Wilson.
Nico.
Nico's a year and a half older.
Yeah, no, I can't go that crazy with Olave.
Okay. But you prefer him to Ibuka? 23 years old for Ibuka compared to 25 for Olave?
Yeah.
What about Pickens? Same age.
Wow. I think I'm going Olave.
Okay, so yeah, then I think even at the elevated price here where he's moved way up. I think that you're still potentially.
Because I believe in the rapport with him and Chuck, and I believe they're building around Chuck and Olave there. That's what I believe. And I don't know that I have that with Pickens. I don't know that I have that with Garrett Wilson, who we don't even know what their quarterback is going to be.
Assuming that you're pretty much like healthy at both running back and receiver.
Yeah.
Would you take Olave over James Cook?
Yes, but like I'm very biased with receiver over running back in Dynasty, so it's hard to. I may be a little overweight in my bias there. I don't really believe in building through running back in Dynasty.
Okay. It's James Cook though, man. Like
it is James Cook. He should be locked in. He signed the long-term contract. The Bills' offensive line, despite losing David Edwards, will probably find a replacement. Should be good. And they hired Cook back. I mean, not Cook. They hired why am I blanking on his name? Joe Brady. Mm-hmm. So okay, I'll keep Cook ahead because of that one fact.
But it would be clearly Olave over Kenneth Walker. Jonathan Taylor.
Oh man, you're right. I guess this is where it gets tough for me. Walker, I'm so enamored by what could happen in KC. But yeah, I'd have Olave over Walker. Jonathan Taylor, probably have him over Taylor too.
Okay. All right. Here are some Chris Rodriguez stats for you.
Okay.
Since Rodriguez entered the NFL in 2023, he has 198 rushes, which is a decent sample size, but it is still relatively small. On those rushes, his stuffed rate is 12.6%. Only James Cook is better at 12.5%. Kyren Williams is next at 13.2%. So the percentage of his runs where he's taking 0 or negative yards is very, very low. He actually has a higher explosive run rate by far than Kyren. It's not even close. And slightly higher than James Cook. But again, small sample size here. But that's the percentage of runs where he gained 12 or more yards. His rush success rate is 47%, which is notably higher than James Cook. Only Kyren is higher at 47.2%. And again, I really do think that the Rams have just been the success rate machine since they've changed the way that their run game operates. And then if you look at like yards after contact per rush, it is Devon Etienne at 3.85 and then Chris Rodriguez at 3.59. And then Derrick Henry at 3.5, James Conner at 3.5, Bijan Robinson at 3.4. This guy's been nuts, man. Yeah. He's been really good. It's not a big sample size at all, but he was really good in college, and then he's just stuck around on this Washington team, and anytime he's been given an opportunity, he's been really good. Like they've tried to figure out like a higher upside solution at running back, but then it just kind of keeps coming back to Rodriguez when they need him, and he just keeps producing when needed. Yeah. He's an interesting player. I mean, if you're into those stats, I think he's that good. Like buy him, sure. He's also free.
I think my ultimate solution, and I don't know where you'll stand ultimately as we get through draft season. I'm going to be buying both.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like we've talked about like this Jacksonville situation is
I have no reason not to buy back into Jacksonville.
Yeah, and if you can get this guy for free, like why not?
I think he won't be free, but there will be skeptics for sure. And then Tootin will have his skeptics because of this.
He's free in Dynasty.
Chris Rodriguez, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. He shouldn't be.
I'll figure out who we've got around Chris Rodriguez. I'm sure his value's moved up a little bit, but he's basically nothing. Okay, so Charbonnet is interesting. I want to talk about the players who are around him because I don't think that's a bad call. He is a very I know you did too. I think you liked his college film more than me even.
I liked it too much.
Whoa.
I did. Like I made some bold statements regarding it that I won't revisit right now.
Oh yeah.
Don't bring that up. Don't bring that up.
Oh, we only get a champion our good takes.
If you can dig it up and find it, that's on you. Without that, it will not be brought back up.
Okay, so Zach Charbonnet he's retained his value. He's at running back 24. Tootin has moved ahead of him. So he's just behind like Javonte Williams, who's seen a big resurgence.
Yep.
He's just behind Cam Scadaboo and RJ Harvey and Tootin. And then you find him ahead of Derrick Henry in this kind of weird range where we don't know what to do with these guys. DeAndre Swift, Kyle Monangai, and then like Tyler Algier, Blake Corum, where it's like it gets weird pretty fast.
It gets weird fast.
So does that feel about right for you? Would you clearly rather have, like, if you've got RJ Harvey, would you just send him for Charbonnet?
I don't think I can do that. I think I was too high on Harvey to give up on him just this fast.
Okay.
But like, if I need help now and I'm playing to win now, I think Charbonnet has a much better chance of being a producer, even with the injury next year, given the Seahawks situation, than Harvey with Dobbins coming back.
So this is maybe more like a buy Zach Charbonnet with picks.
Yeah.
If we get to the draft, people are excited about the rookies. By that time, all this content has come in because you guys know the content's going to come in. The content has to come in.
And he's not going to be a part of any of that.
We have to keep the light on, so people are going to talk about these rookies, and then people are going to get excited about these rookies.
Right.
And then it'll be time to pick the rookies. And if you've got the picks, maybe the guy who has Zach Charbonnet, a guy or girl is roster Zach Charbonnet. They haven't thought about him in a while. He's hurt. Don't have Glenn Kubiak anymore. They want this guy. They want the guy who's, available right now that's exciting, that's a rookie. That's probably the way to do it. Because, I think his rank here is about appropriate. I would probably, I don't know if I'd rather. He's the same age as Harvey. I think I'd rather have Charbonnet. We've seen Charbonnet have freaking monster games in the NFL.
Yeah, I know. I like.
We've seen Charbonnet have like 30 touches, and be a bell cow that you can run your offense.
He's a red zone guy for fantasy. Okay, I can get.
He can play on passing downs too.
Yeah.
Like he's not something you're super excited about on passing downs, but he can play.
Okay, I'm in on it.
Wandale. I'm not sure what to do with Wandale Robinson in Dynasty. I would not be buying him, but it might be an okay idea. He's in this really weird range where it's like it goes Alec Pierce, then DJ Moore, Jordan Addison, Wandale, DK Metcalf. Where it's like, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Sure, you want to take Wandale over those guys? I guess that's fine. Jordan Addison's, I think, is clearly a better player and maybe will be the better long-term
They
bet.
all might be better players than Wandale, but Wandale is going to get more targets.
Yeah.
A lot more targets than all of those players.
Would you take Michael Wilson over him because he's still lower in value?
Yes, but only because I love Michael Wilson.
Would you take Christian Watson over him?
No.
Okay.
Even though I love Watson, I just trust what the Titans did here. They told us what they did here. They gave this guy $20 million and didn't add any other receivers.
If you guys want to PPR scam your way to some points,
yeah,
I don't think this is the worst way to go about it.
Scam away.
Maybe you get lucky and he scores some touchdowns on some Cam Ward broken plays, cool throws down the field. Right. He's fast. He could score a touchdown if it's a broken play.
Last year, he scored touchdowns with Dart on broken plays. He's super explosive, super fast, super quick getting in and out of his breaks. Like on the
he had a good year last year. We talked about him on the free agency.
He looked good on tape. He's just a limited player because he's 5'8" with a 0 percentile wingspan. But other than that, he looked good on tape.
We talked about him on the free agency recap. He averaged 0.4 fantasy points per out round, which is a really strong number.
Yeah.
If you've heard me reference some of these numbers throughout the podcast here, if he stacks another year on top of that, then it's like, look at Wandale, he's 26 years old and he's entering his prime and he's been a good fantasy receiver. Maybe he starts to move up these ranks a little bit. I do think ultimately it's going to be pretty capped how far he'll move up for people.
Sure.
But you could get some profit here on him at this price and you could get some points along the way for sure.
I think it could look similar to Zay Flowers if it breaks right.
Yeah.
I also guess I just believe a little bit more in his talent than you do.
I think I basically see him the same. I mean, I liked him coming out of college quite a bit. I was intrigued by him. I think we've all just got tired of this role that he's in, and now it's just kind of going to be the same thing, I think. But maybe it's expanded a little bit with Ward. I think that there's
the same thing, but like we saw last year with just a little bit of upgraded quarterback play, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want to get the Daniel Jones lovers on my case again, but like he played terrible with the Giants. I know he played great with the Colts, blah, blah, blah. Just with the Giants, he was terrible, literally terrible. with an upgrade at quarterback with Winston, Wilson, and Dart, Wan'Dale finally started to put up big fantasy numbers. And now I feel like Ward can be an upgrade over the version of Daniel Jones the Giants got. I know Jones is now great with the Colts. I get it. But with the version that they got, I feel like Ward can be an upgrade over that. So I think it's going to look a lot more like Wan'Dale in 2025 than earlier in his career.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's wrap with Worthy. Yep. We talked about him a little bit, but I just want to talk about the players in this range. So Worthy and Golden are two guys that you're interested in buying. Neither has turned 23 years old. A couple of underperforming speedsters out of Texas. Can they actually be NFL players who get catches and yards and fantasy points? I don't know. Who are you clearly taking them ahead of it? Doubs, I'm fine with. I'm kind of coming around on Pittman maybe scoring some points with Rodgers and McCarthy and everything. We'll see there. But he is 28 years old. I'm fine taking them ahead of him if you're any sort of like long-term window here is your priority. What about Jayden Higgins compared to these guys?
I like them both over Higgins considerably.
Considerably?
Yeah. Unfortunately,
I feel like it was a pretty good year for Higgins, and he's with
Stroud.
He did
look good. He can win those one-on-ones. He's a big target. I don't see it as much.
Ricky Pearsall.
No. Even though I did like Pearsall, I'm just so done with his injury situation. He's injured all the time in college. And it's just
he's a lot older than these guys, too.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
The saddest one to see is Hunter. Just all the Dynasty shares I have of him. Just a disgusting investment I made in him. Only to watch him play corner next year.
Okay. So you're pretty high on them. I wonder if there's any like running back comparisons that make
No, but then you get in like
would you rather have Monangai than these guys?
No.
You'd rather have the receivers?
For sure.
What about Charbonnet?
No, the receivers.
Tootin?
The receivers for sure.
For sure?
So for me, it comes down to belief in their talent, belief in the tape I've watched, especially with Golden. The Worthy tape I need to get into more of his 2025. I liked his 2024 tape. And the draft capital. I still stand by that. I believe in that. I believe they were drafted for a role. And just because it hasn't surfaced just yet, especially in Golden's case, doesn't mean it's not going to surface.
Chat says they'd rather have Jalen Coker than Golden.
That's to me crazy.
I think you're
but everybody's down on Golden. I get it. The analytical profile's bad. We'll see. The tape was good.
I do think it's a decent time to buy Golden if you're in. And maybe Worthy.
Yeah, it's the bet. They're both, even if they're ranked where they are here, you're getting them even cheaper. Everybody's done on these guys.
I like I like Golden's tape so much more than Worthy, man. I don't think Worthy's a good football player. I don't think he's a good route runner. I don't know.
In Texas, though. What happened? Did it just all fall out, or did he get injured in week 1 last year and never return the same?
Yeah, that could be fair. Maybe I've got bias here as the Chiefs because he just annoys the crap out of me, dude.
He got injured in week 1, and then he got injured again with the knee, and I feel like that was even worse for him. But we'll see.
All right, so yeah, you're considerably higher. Quinshon Judkins are these guys.
No, Quinshon Judkins' tape was good. I guess I have to take Quinshon Judkins over those guys, but
or you could trade Quinshon Judkins for these guys and multiple.
I have Quinshon Judkins. I'm trading the heck out of him. I want a piece of the Browns offense moving forward at any point? No. The answer is strong no. Their offensive line looks disgustingly bad. They have no quarterback. This is going to be just a dead offense week after week, which Judkins produced in, by the way, last year. He sometimes produced in a dead offense, but not always.
All right. I'll wrap with a question here on, we've been talking about the youngsters. Let's talk about some old guys. We've got Kenneth Walker, Mike Evans. We've got these videos out. Go check these player profiles out if you have not. About 20, 30 minutes long. I know that their value is way up, but if you've got a team where you're contending and you can get these guys at a reasonable cost, do you have any interest in them in Dynasty? Or are they just going to be more redraft players for you? Because to me, they clearly feel like more redraft players. With Ken Walker, it's because the bet is expensive, and I don't know if he can be more than an early downs back. And it's also the bet's contingent on the Chiefs being good with the offensive line right now, and I don't know. Offensive lines can fluctuate. Like, I think it'll continue to be good. Like, Creed Humphreys is young. Like, a lot of their linemen are young.
They have the two two of the best young interior offensive linemen in the NFL, I feel like.
I think that you're maybe giving Trey Smith too much credit. He said,
okay.
I
took a step back last year.
That was, I was gonna say that was kind of the perception of him like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
But they've got young talent on the line for sure. But it's just like things can change with the line.
You're right though. Like, despite the young talent, it was odd how poorly they ran the ball, especially with Creed Humphrey on that line. It was just odd.
I think I know why.
Why?
The guys that were running the ball.
Just the running backs?
Yeah, man, Pacheco. I think Pacheco's so bad. I'm clearly coming with Chiefs bias here, and I don't like to say the players are bad. I almost never do it, but like, look,
you got Mahomes there. Like,
look at the metrics.
You're seeing light boxes on it. I did see the stat. Did you see the Pacheco stat on light boxes?
Yeah,
it's like the saddest stat in football. It's like he faced more light boxes than anybody in the NFL, and yet sucked.
Yeah. Okay, so Mike Evans is just below this tier of receivers that we've been talking about, with the McLaurin, Jayden Reed, Cortland Sutton, Golden. So first, the veterans. Would you like McLaurin as a buy? Would you rather buy him than Evans if you're a team who's very competitive right now? I know he's younger, but
if I'm playing for now, it's Evans for me.
Okay. I think it's possible we have a 2-year window on Evans.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
Okay.
Not that old.
It's kind of like Adams last year, right? Like, it's pretty similar bet. So Adams, after last year, is up at wide receiver 40. So he's worth a decent chunk more than Evans, but still, like, you're not going to push much more than that. So this isn't really a situation where you're going to make a profit. It's more like, what are you willing to pay to get these points right now? And then I guess, you could do a flip on some of these veterans if somebody really likes McLaurin. Pittman or Evans producing right now? I think it's clearly Evans. Sutton or Evans? I think it's clearly Evans.
Evans, clearly.
Okay, so what about like young pieces? You really like Worthy or Golden? If you found somebody who liked Golden, would you be willing to flip him for like Evans and some picks?
No shot.
If you're competing right now?
Yeah, and if I'm trading Evans, I want to get something a little bit more than Golden.
No, I'm saying, would you trade Golden for Evans and a pick if you're competing?
If I'm competing now, yeah, for sure. But you're not getting much for Golden. Like, the price tag is so low.
Then let's say Jayden Higgins then.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you could consider that with some of these younger guys. If you're not super convinced that they're going to be studs, you could do like if you weren't super into Higgins, you just landed on him. You could do Higgins for Evans and a reroll with a pick. You turn your second round pick last year into Evans and a third or whatever. So it's like a later pick, but it still gives you some long-term outlook, potential. And then you maybe get some big points right now injected into your lineup. Or you could just send picks. What is I'm curious what he's worth relative to draft picks. Evans, they've got as a 2026 early second or 2027 mid second. I think I'm comfortable with that. I generally wait to do those types of moves until in the season though.
Yeah.
Like where I know that I'm not going to lose Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson like I did last year. My team's going to crash out, or I know that Evans is healthy at that point because I don't think his value is going to change that much. Okay. And you're just pretty much not buying Kenneth Walker at this price. Is that right?
Yeah.
He's expensive right now. He's like, just below James Cook is pretty crazy. He's really good though. He's really good. And if he gets a 3-down roll, like he's going to be worth every penny, I think. Yeah, we'll save that for redraft season. All right. Great stuff here, Dan. You ready to call it?
Yeah, let's call it. Thank you so much for listening. Longer show again today. We will try to concise these at some point, but I know some of you like the long ones, so we're not going to complain. I will say this. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. We need subscribers too. Please hit subscribe. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.